3, 2, 1.
Yeah, I think the saddest thing I have to say about Infinity Train is that I understand why CN canceled it, and I think I would have done the same. There are some incredible stories in here, but I'm not sure that this team knows how to tell them. That was Jello Apocalypse's tweet on Infinity Train after it got wiped off the planet. Hi, everybody.
I like that
Welcome
your
back to
mocking
Campy
voice of
Cats.
Jello sounds like Jello's mocking voice, just in general.
It is. He just talks like that. I hate it. Ah, good.
Anyways,
Anyway.
yeah, we're back, and we're doing it like we said last time. We're doing another big TV show episode, a big dissection of an old and of a of a pretty damn good show, if I do say so
Yeah.
myself.
Yeah.
And we brought back to do this. We brought back the OG, our very first Campy Cast guest. Welcome back,
Episode
Josh.
5. I was initially on for.
Yeah, nearly
I
40
think it
episodes
says a lot.
later.
I think it says a lot about how old that was. That during that episode we were covering the Mario movie trailer.
What? Oh my god.
Yeah, that was so long ago.
You know, it's been so long. You weren't even fucking Sprig in the thumbnail. That's the biggest giveaway.
I was the guy from home.
Yeah, the reason I did that is solely because
crazy.
I wanted to
Bazinga,
introduce the audience. I tried to justify your name, so that's like the only reason why I did that.
No one calls me that now.
We called them Bazinga more than, but that just sounds unnatural. Like I'm not talking to like.
We'll just call him Josh today.
You know?
Yeah,
Josh.
Yeah, everyone calls me Josh.
Josh Bazinga. Anyway.
Yeah.
So
anyway,
before we get into the topic of today's episode, the 4-season show of Infinity Train, which was unfortunately canned badly. We'll talk about another movie that was recently canned pretty badly. Coyote vs. Acme is being deleted forever at Warner Bros. And people are pissed. And frankly, I am as well, because like it's just bullshit. Like the movie's premise actually sounds kind of cool. Like I think it has potential, and I am interested in seeing it. But we probably never will.
See, my whole thing is I kind of lost track of covering it for a while. But I think the whole funny thing about this situation is Warner Brothers is in this situation where they're literally acting like a petty child, essentially, because their whole thing is they don't want to release it because they don't think it'll be a hit, so they're gonna delete it. But then they're like, oh, they could sell it to other studios, but they're like, they don't want to sell it to other studios because if it's a hit, they'll be embarrassed. So they clearly, in some form, think it could do well, but they just like, oh, we're just gonna delete it off the face of the planet.
Yeah,
it's kind of
bullshit.
I think it's weirder that this isn't even the first time, because a while ago it happened with that Scoob sequel. There was like and Batwoman, a couple, and those wouldn't have even been good, I don't think. But regardless, it's just weird that they can do that. I don't think the quality of the thing should matter because it's just deleting something like that. And this one I think is a little more disappointing because I don't know. Apparently got really good test screenings, Aquaman 2, and people were saying it looked pretty fun, but oh well. It's gone. People are hashtagging for it, but now it's like too late, I guess. Some people are hoping it'll like leak, like that Sandy Cheeks thing did like a while back, and that would be cool. But I don't know, I'm not holding out hope for anything. I think if it was gonna, it would have by now.
Yeah, probably.
See, Sandy Cheeks wasn't cancelled in the first place, so
yeah, that movie's still coming out. It's like I don't even know when it's coming out, but like, frankly, I don't care when, since I've already seen it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but I don't have too much really to say about this other than I just like feel bad for the crew, and there was clearly a lot of passion and effort like that was shown into this project, and seeing it not being fully realized is kind of sad.
Yeah, I think it's a shame because like, I know Warner Brothers clearly doesn't have any idea what to do with Looney Tunes now. Like, nothing's gone that like successful recently. And all I have that would have probably been really cool, but oh well. There's nothing much more to it than that, I guess. Is that it for news? Because I don't know if it's a slow week. I don't have.
I mean, there is this like funny story that's been popping around about the about this fucking fake Willy Wonka chocolate factory that was teased with AI pictures, and then it turned out to be like a fucking shit show. It was like this big factory. There was so much smoke. There, it was so depressing. It was kind of funny, but I feel bad for everyone who wasted money on it.
See, I thought it was funny, and then I learned that they were charging $45 a person for that, and that's like, it's literally like scam type shit, which is really
like
funny to me, but also it's like, it is. It sounded like a fucking Always Sunny plot, what I was thinking. But yeah, it is funny how just poorly that whole thing went. It was like, you look up pictures and it's literally just mostly empty rooms with like mild props there.
Yeah, and then there's this
it's
picture
funny,
you keep
and
seeing of an Oompa Loompa like who looks high, genuinely.
Yeah. And also, the unknown, they had to just make up something for it.
They just made up this random thing that's not even part of the Willy Wonka thing.
Why would that
to
be
just go around and scare people?
Exactly,
so
just
weird.
a random. Fucking, not even in the book, they just bullshitted it.
You know what this kind of reminds me of? Do you guys remember in 2018, the YouTuber Tana Mojo set up this event called TanaCon, and then when people got there, it was nothing like it was advertised. She charged a lot for it.
Is that the one where iDub said the N-word, or is that
no? This wasn't that. This was the same person, but it's a different event. It's because it sort of reminds me of that. This is like a event that's advertised a certain way, but then goes completely wrong. It's not the same as that, but it's like the same sort of.
Well,
deal.
it's like a cartoon trope essentially. Just
yeah,
having
exactly.
The, like
Krabby
fake
Land.
things. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Which it's funny that it even happened. I think there were like police investigations or something. I heard of this one because it was like all that false advertising shit. I think it's very funny, but I think
I can't blame them for being ripped off like that.
Yeah.
Anyways, I think that's it.
But I think that's all. You know,
to
it's
be honest,
it's kind of funny.
So just some weird news. Anyways,
wait, I do find one thing funny that there was the Wonka movie last year, and I barely heard anyone talk about that. And there was more buzz on this fucking AI like advertised Wonka thing and the actual Big Willy Wonka movie last year. And that's very funny. But
anyways,
yeah, that's all.
Let's get to the show of today. We're talking about Infinity Train, a show that made by Owen Dennis that was canned and just treated like shit. And I guess I noticed a pattern. We've done shows that have been treated like shit like twice, like we did Moral Oral, then the Owl House, and now this. And this one hurt. This one is like one of the ones that hurts the most, you know.
Yeah, because it literally you can't watch it legally.
Yeah. The only way you could watch this show is through piracy now. Like that sucks.
Yeah, exactly.
That's awful.
Yeah. So annoying. See, it was incredibly frustrating to me because when I want to recommend a show to someone, this is like one of my default ones because it's very easy to address. You can be like, oh, it's kind of just like watching 4 movies. You can just put it on. It's short, right? It's an easy recommendation to someone, especially considering how much is in it for how good it is. But now it's like for the average consumer, it's harder to do that now because not everyone knows how to pirate like easily.
Yeah,
so just like, oh well, it's all gone.
Yeah.
Or like tax write-offs, I guess.
And like
something.
they can't. The creators of the show can't get what they deserve from it because it's not available to watch legally. Like there's no
exactly.
It hurts.
Yeah.
The show has been like wiped.
The fact that we're in
almost.
The fact that we're in a situation where the creator had to like advertise pirating their own show, it's like it's fucking ridiculous at a certain point. Like what even?
Yeah, back when Warner Bros. Was like on a streak, just making a heap load of shitty decisions, like canceling shit, like taking stuff off their streaming platform. It was a whole mess. This was one of the shows that got strick with the most, and now it was just abandoned. It was canceled early, which we'll talk more about later when we get into the later seasons of the show. But it hurts, especially since there's so much more potential for the show. With it only having 4 seasons, there were like supposed to be, I think,
they had a plan for it to do, but they never got to.
Yeah,
I don't know. I think best case scenario is it gets picked up by a network that will treat it well and they can actually do what they wanted to do, which we'll talk about further, like what their plan was. But it's still just such a shame. Like not only did it get cancelled early, but it also just got deleted. Like how? It's very upsetting.
One thing I do find funny about that is obviously Infinity Train was the main one, but they did that to like a lot of shows, but just some of them people don't care about, so they don't notice. Like
exactly.
Seth Rogen's Santa Inc. had the same thing happen to it, but did you see anyone complaining about
Well, yeah,
that?
no one's gonna fight for justice with Santa Inc.
Because this show was like
I find that
one
kind
a
of
lot
funny.
of people
But
really liked.
yeah, exactly. And it is frustrating for what I said because like as we'll get into all of these, even I'm not as ho hum on 4, but most of the show has so much to it in just like a small amount of time that I think most shows that like have episodes that are longer and seasons that are longer don't like get across as much, and they for what little they had, they did so much just crammed into each like individual little season. And that's something I greatly respect about this show, and it's just shame that people aren't gonna
Like they could have done
it.
like I'm more than satisfied with what we have. Like I love those first 3 seasons so much, but also we could have gotten even more, and they clearly had a plan
Yeah.
for more. And it's just frustrating how little of
Yeah.
the show there is.
Especially
ultimately.
when you hear some of the ideas they had for future seasons, even a full-blown movie at some point.
Yeah, that sounded so cool. Yeah.
That would have been so awesome, but
But
It
anyway,
would
we can
be
probably get
so
into talking about
awesome.
the actual show now. Now we've gone over how badly it got treated.
Yeah.
So
I guess we'll get into the very first season.
yeah,
Book 1, The Perennial Child.
yeah.
The very
There's
first
a lot of like
season.
cool subtitles. I never call them by that. It's just easier to say 1, 2,
I
3.
like
Yeah, that's fair. I just feel
the
like in this
subtitle of
case it'd
three
be
sounds
cool to like
cool.
transition into them like this.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's cool.
Like,
But
All right, let's get into so the very first season or book as they call it,
I use that
and
avatar thing.
it is a pretty damn great season. I think it gets
Yeah,
better later. I think it's like
definitely.
I think if we're looking at the
definitely.
main trilogy, the main first 3, ignoring the fourth one, which spoilers, I think we all think that's the weakest one, but
Definitely.
basically I feel like this is the
Yeah, it
weakest of the
really is
main
that
3,
fine.
but it is really good regardless. It's a really good
Yeah,
like starting season to introduce the
Definitely,
concept of this
definitely.
show, and
mm.
yeah, it succeeds. It's a pretty
I
damn good
I think
show.
like I think when you compare this to season 2 and 3, they have a lot more going on. But also, this one's really good in how like simple it is. Like it's a simple story about Tulip and her character and learning to cope with change. And then they throw in more complex stuff at the end. And it's really good at just establishing what the concept of the show is and what they can do with it.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
really like
definitely.
the first episode. I think does a good job at introducing it. Like they cleverly like foreshadow the stuff of her parents divorcing and how that's a big issue for her. Like there's a scene where she talks to her friend and her friend brings it up and she's hesitant to talk about it. So when in a future episode she does unveil that, it's really really interesting because this is something that's been alluded to but not fully explored yet. So it's good at this thing the show's really good at in general. It's good at having bits of dialogue that foreshadow future stuff, so those moments are even more interesting when they do happen.
Yeah.
Definitely. This
Yeah,
show's really good at build up, I notice, in like
yeah,
in all the seasons actually, because it's very easy to separate the seasons because like the first 4 episodes usually like the formulas they're like a little more light, a lot of character setup, introduction stuff, and then the fifth will have like a big event, and that's like where usually the second half will be a lot more darker, and we'll delve into like more concepts and whatnot.
yeah, yeah.
Uh, it's not always like this, but that's you can generally like pinpoint a moment in each season where you have that shift. And
Yeah,
this one, it's episode 5, which I'd argue is
definitely.
the best
That
episode of the
definitely,
season. The
definitely. That
cat
was
cart does a
that's
lot
one of the best
Yeah,
shows.
really
it is
really
one
well.
of
I
the
love that
best
episode.
ones.
But
Mm.
the first four are good, like chill establishing it. Tulip
Yeah,
and
it's like it starts off like a really there's something like very charming to the vibe of this show.
yeah,
At
yeah,
the start,
definitely.
like we get a main character is Tulip. She's like a 13-year-old. She's going through a relatable issue that some people might relate to with how she's struggling
Yeah,
because her parents are divorced. She gets on
yeah.
this train. She meets this little bug
1-1.
thing named One, which is
He's
like
very
this
very charming.
very charming character.
I
Yeah, I
love
really
Yeah,
like how.
and
I also like how he's voiced by like 2 different actors who play the sad
yeah, that's
version of
neat.
him and
That's neat.
the
yeah.
happy one, and one is voiced by the creator of the show. So that's cool.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Oh, I did not notice that. That's cool. Neat.
Yeah,
But
so there's a nice establishment of it all. So we basically see
yeah,
Tulip and One like go through different cars. They gotta they're they're just kind of chilling. Tulip
yeah,
is unsure about the number, and yeah, there's like a nice bit of mystery in the second episode when
yeah.
we get introduced to the cat
And
character,
Cat and
who
Randall. The second episode has Randall, who's very
Randall.
very
Yeah,
funny.
Randall. I
Yeah,
like Randall. He's
Yeah, I
cool.
I
like
love him.
He's
I
cool.
love him.
I
Yeah.
like him.
But this first half I think is really good for its creativity. Like all of the cars. There's one bit in episode 3, I think, where they just show her going through a bunch of cars, and there's a lot of like really creative concepts. Because literally, an Infinity Train car can be anything. They can do anything with that,
yeah.
whether it's like super out there or super simple. And
Yeah.
yeah, they got a lot out of that concept. I like it a lot.
Yeah,
Episode
exactly. That's
3,
one of my like favorite things about the show. Just it has this like endless creativity too, because literally it's infinite. You could do anything with. You can have like an overly like elaborate car that's just like all these different like supernatural stuff, or you could have a more like simple one that like highlights the characters really well, which
yeah,
they do a lot in the show that I really
yeah,
like. Um, I really like episode 4 a lot.
The
The
crystal
musical,
one. Yeah, I like
the
that
Crystal
one.
Crystal
Car.
Car.
Yeah, yeah,
Mm. I like the whole build up of that one, where it builds up to the trying to find like a song with like an important like meaning to it. But then the whole
yeah,
thing that it builds up to is just the song that actually has anything is this song that that Tulip would sing with her family, and it's this like sort of cheesy, not like that meaningful song, but the meaning from that comes from her personal experience with
yeah.
it, and then it
Yeah,
was
she had
No,
like a
yeah. I
personal
like that in
connection to it.
relation to the next episode, because that next episode is the one where she confronts the thing about her parents. Having that moment where she sings a song about the stuff of her parents is a good lead into that. So yeah, it's a really good moment in that episode.
Yeah.
I like episode 3 because it's just a recreation of the pilot. And then when
Yeah,
I
it
got to that
is.
one, it was cool for me because I remember watching that pilot for the show like 7 years ago now. So then 6 years after I get into the actual show, I'm like, oh shit, that's just that pilot that I watched ages ago and thought was cool. And
Yeah.
then it formed into the actual thing in the show was cool because I'm
Yeah,
like, oh, that's what
Uh,
that is. Yeah,
Yeah, if you've watched this without watching that original pilot, I would recommend it. It's literally just that episode 3, but it is cool. You get to see
yeah, the
the
animation
yeah,
slight
style's a
character
bit
design changes.
different.
yeah.
Mm. I think it
Tulip
looks
looks
kind of
slightly
cool, but
different.
I prefer the more simplistic look of what they
Yeah,
actually went with. I think it
yeah.
all really
It
nice.
also introduces
It's cool.
actor episode who's very charming as well.
Yeah,
This
Atticus
season
is a
just has
great
really
Yeah,
good like
character. I really like
sidekick characters.
Ernie
Yeah,
Hudson as him. He's a good casting
yeah,
choice. I
yeah,
thought he was. I thought it added quite a bit
yeah.
to this character. I don't know. I thought I had a smile on my face of the cute little simple dog jokes they made. I don't
Yeah,
know. There's just something very
yeah.
charming to how they're like shown
It's
and
it's
integrated.
very charming, like in the characters having just a simple dynamic this season. Also, this episode has the face thing with all the wires that looks like no space and Spirited Away.
Oh
It's
my
really
god, it does.
disturbing.
Yeah.
oh, it
Yeah,
does. Yeah.
yeah.
I didn't
That
even think
thing's
about
really
that, but
yeah.
yeah.
That thing's really cool. Like it's got a really cool creepy design to it. I like it a lot.
Yeah. Um.
Yeah,
E.
It's cool in that way. Yeah, it's like that final confrontation just does a good job at building up this mystery because there's something off about this train because like on a first viewing you're like what does this number mean? What is the point of any of this?
yeah,
And then when you start to understand the point, it leads to some pretty strong character work between the antagonist of the season and
yeah.
Tulip, which we'll talk more about when we get to the end
Yeah,
of the
that's
season.
The whole
really
number
interesting.
thing is so simple, and I love how the next few seasons sort of play on it, and how this like idea of the number like reflects the characters' personalities really well, which I'll get
Yeah,
to more with season 2 and season 3.
they,
But
they subvert it
yeah,
really, really well there.
yeah,
Yeah,
and here's just a cool thing. I like the visual of just the number on the hand, and you can like
yeah,
it's glowing, and you can see it just slowly go down. It creates this like not well. There's the mystery around what it means. I like it has a good visual indicator of like how far the story's in because you see this the
yeah.
Yeah.
It's a good way to like represent character growth because whenever Tulip goes through like a change or something, she does something heroic or like for herself, it goes down. Like at the end of the Crystal Car, when she does the song, it goes down.
Yeah,
So
because
it's
she's
really
now
neat
trying
way
to
of just
morph a
showing
bigger
that through a
connection
visual
to this
thing here.
family through singing the cheesy song. So
Yeah,
yeah, it's a good, simple, and subtle way of indicating this.
exactly. Yeah.
The
And then,
message.
okay, episode 5, like we said, is a very big turning point. This one is so good.
Yeah,
So
it is amazing with how first off we see that Tulip starts like seeing this tape that the cat mysteriously has, and she almost gets trapped in her own memories, and it's like this weird thing when there's like these fake memories that have been built around her subconscious.
There's a funny bit where there's like an advertisement that has Atticus and One in it.
Yeah, and it's about the fucking pipe thing from episode 2. I thought that was cute.
Yeah. But I really like this one because you show Tulip altering her memories. Like initially, you see them as like, oh, they're more positive than they are, and she exaggerates how nice they were. But then they show versions that are way more like dark. And there's a bit where she's talking to her parents and they turn into like demons. That's a cool visual thing to show how much
cool.
these
I also
memories
like
haunt her.
how how like the static that is like forming
Yeah,
around
that's
her kind
such a
of
cool
shows
visual.
her control over memories and how it shrinks over time. It's like it's an
When
unsettling visual that really like says a lot in a subtle, well
they
done
use
way.
static in season 2 and 3 as well, really well. But no, here in this season, in this episode, it's cool because as she like comes to terms of what the memory actually was, not exaggerating it to be better or worse, just what actually happened, the static fades because she's accepting what really happened. And I really like the dialogue in that part because it shows, oh, this has affected Turok a lot because she knows what's going to happen. She knows exactly what she's thinking. And there's a really good line where she's like, yeah, this is definitely what happened, but that doesn't make it any better. Like she's not exaggerating it at all anymore, but it's still hard for her to face. And then the rest of the season is just her coming to terms with that change, and it's really, really interesting.
Yeah,
I like that whole thing a lot, like you guys said, of just exaggerating the memory of it, because obviously it's a very like specific thing to divorce in this situation, but it is like a general thing in life where if you have a bad event or something, it's easy for you to like internally exaggerate it or think of it as bigger than it is. Like they very like the actual scene she exaggerates it where her parents are literally like yelling about the divorce and how it's her fault or something like that. Even when you like paint it how it is and like don't exaggerate any of it, it still like hurts as the line says. And I think that's a really clever way of showing it because it is very true to life and that whole like thing how you build up memories like that in your head. And that's what the whole show.
You notice the visuals in this part in the memories where she makes it seem better. The visuals are a lot lighter. But then in the dark one, it's like red and they change the design of their parents. It looks really cool. But then in the normal one, it's just grey. Like it's just flat how it happened. Nothing changed, just how it is. And it's sad, but it's like realistic and her coming to terms with how it actually happened.
Yeah, and it's
through the
like,
whole
and
visual.
after this, it brings her to a point where she doesn't even like care about her number, and she just tries to like hide it. Just like trying to just move along the train aimlessly, you know?
Yeah, I love that ending where she's like talking to the cat and she's just like, said she's like, all right, no more numbers, no more bad memories. She's just done with all this shit, and then they like move on to the next cover.
Yeah, she's
it's really
tired
good
of
ending.
letting this number dictate her every choice and just wants to like casually go through it, not really caring about what it says, and just trying her best to get off the train at some point.
And that's the whole thing about how, like I said, the numbers are very reflective of the characters' actual personalities. Because Tulip is after this point, she just starts to like ignore the number and like just go along. Essentially, how like her whole thing is that she's ignoring all of her problems and suppressing the people around her, just trying to move along with her own thing. But eventually, she learns that that's not healthy, and she has to actually overcome that. Hence, why she even gets off the train at all. It's like they don't tell you all this specifically, but I think it's a really good way of showing character like personality and like issues through just like a simple thing like the numbers. I love all that a lot.
It's a good thing you can easily infer and a good way of just showing that
Exactly.
through a concept. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Just showing that telling, I like that a lot.
Yeah. The show's very good at that.
Second half's not as like, well, it doesn't start as like intense as episode 5, but I like all the second half one's a lot.
Yeah.
The unfinished car is really, I like the
really does
visuals are really
it does
cool.
a great job at foreshadowing 1-1, and how like even when we first like
Oh, yeah,
see him, it's like there is something that's weird about seeing this thing, you know, like just the design, like what is he for, what does he mean when he's trying to find his mom, like there's mystery there, and it's like
they
reflected
set it
well
up
in this
very well.
episode when he tries to like prepare and fix a car, even though the residents have been able to adapt to this bizarre system to him. And
Yeah, and I
once we
like that with Tulip because it shows like how trying to change something isn't always the correct solution, and that links to Tulip stuff really
yeah,
well.
that
It's her
like
whole
because it does a good job at relating to her
yeah,
struggle with
Yeah,
her
it's all about
parents,
yeah,
acceptance,
longing
really.
them to
yeah,
just like be
exactly.
back
Yeah,
together so she can live a normal life. Which
yeah,
is like,
exactly.
first off, I like that conflict. While it's very simple, it is a good thing to like introduce this overall Infinity Train concept, which is like revealed more by the end of the series of what this whole number thing has been about, which is something that you are the audience is able to pick up on
Mm,
as they watch more, you know.
yeah,
So like,
yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Anyway, the
Um,
next episode is set up for season 2, which is really, really good.
yeah.
That's something cool this show
I
does.
really
In
like
this
this
season,
episode because it introduces my favorite character on the show, so
yeah,
that's nice.
empty,
But
yeah,
even in this individual one, I like that concept a lot. Obviously, it
same.
expanded a lot in season two. This idea where they're like, oh, there's like using the idea of like a reflection and how that's like no, it's like not just a literal person that has to
yeah.
follow your
That's
every
cool.
move,
Yeah,
and how
That's like a
empty in this
depressing
one, she's
existence.
like,
So like,
yeah,
yeah.
it's
like
so bad, but
we'll
this whole
obviously
thing
talk
where
about
she's
more.
like. Sorry, yeah,
Go
go
on,
ahead,
go on.
Josh.
No, no,
Go ahead.
you go on. You go on.
I was gonna say that whole thing where I love the conflict of this one, where at first it's like you think of her as this like antagonist, like oh no, she's stealing Tulip's regular life or whatever. But then you realize, oh no, she has it fucking bad, man. That's like
Yeah,
all
yeah.
Yeah.
really awful. And the like this
But
idea that like she's trying to like the reason she's even so pissed is because she sees Tulip's problems highlighted even more because she actually sees her doing everything.
there's a
And that
great scene
whole
where they connect on that. Like they have, like there's a scene where she's trying to get out, but she still can't. And then and Tulip, instead of antagonizing her, tries to form like a connection and understand her further, and then they help each other
Yeah, there's
out.
like
It's
it leads to
really,
this
really
great
good that moment.
scene where they just simply talk,
Yeah,
and how it also just
yeah,
leads to her going on her own
yeah.
path by the end, which is understandable. And I just think it's
Yeah,
like
I
such
love.
a creative and interesting concept, which is
It's a great
something I
like
really like about this show.
personifying someone's reflection and seeing how they'd react if they were real is such an interesting concept.
Yeah,
And
it's so
yeah,
you
it's
see
so
cool,
it's
and I
more in
love
season
how they
2.
expand on that and
Yeah,
make that the main
yeah,
focus in the second season.
season 2. Yeah, that's so cool. Yeah. Yeah, no, like you said, I like the ending of this one a lot, where Tulip offers MP to come with her, but MP's been tied to Tulip her whole life, so no, she wants to go on her own path, and then
That makes
that path is
sense.
season 2. Yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
And it also like does a good job at showing like what she doesn't want to be in when we get to book 2. So like,
yeah, yeah,
yeah, another
yeah,
Yeah.
good way of showing this uh
yeah.
I also really like
character
that
as an introduction.
that teasing they go into the next car and it's like pencil people. I like the visual of that. It's funny.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
But
yeah, that's funny.
Another creative thing they do. Yeah.
see,
Anyway,
I do like how like sometimes they like even though there are 10 episodes and a lot of them are one car, one car, one car, one car, they still have like those little tidbits of other ones. Like a lot of episodes begin with them getting out of a car, and
yeah,
you just look
definitely.
back. I
They
think it's
Yeah,
get
cool.
like
It gets like a
they can get brief
lot.
moments of other concepts they want to do for cars. It
Yeah,
makes the world feel
you don't
more.
need one for every car, obviously, but
Yeah,
like you're getting little snippets. It's fun.
like I said, in
It's
episode 3,
neat
they have the
little.
bit where they show like just a compilation of them going through different cars. It's really cool. Yeah,
yeah.
Yeah, definitely,
yeah,
definitely.
It's
and
a
Mm.
good. Yeah, I guess we'll get into
mm,
the final 3
Moving.
episodes that all
the
build
next
up
one
to
has
the.
very signature Infinity Train is very dark sometimes stuff.
Yeah, this is when the
Like
show, like, episode 5 was when the show was, like, showing more of its dark undertones. But in this one, they just start showing it by the end of it. Because it starts
yeah,
off very cheerful. They go on, like,
yeah,
a cute
it's
little
called the ball pit
scavenger
car.
hunt.
It's
They go in this
yeah,
ball pit, they meet this bunny. and then they just go on this thing, and
He's
there's something.
charming, and
It's
then
very cute. It starts off as,
yeah,
but then it gradually we start seeing the no name fucking
no
bot thing
face thing
again.
yet.
No
Yep.
face. Why did I say no name?
Yeah. No.
Yes, and
Yeah.
then we see the conductor,
Oh
who
yeah,
has been
that's such a
teased
cool
throughout
moment.
it. We've seen her like with the cat, and how the cat is like under her control, and it also like um yeah, we just like see her in this one, and I do really like the design of her suit. I think
It looks cool.
it looks cool and
Mm,
intimidating. I liked
yeah.
it. I like it.
Yeah.
And then we just see man Atticus just turns into this monster, and then
Oh,
it's
it's
like it's
terrifying.
very
Like
sad.
they have that visual of literally a corgi getting shot, and it's just terrifying.
It's just
And then you see
damn,
Tulip's
bro.
reaction to that; she just breaks down. It's so
It's so
sad.
sad. And then
Mm,
one tries to run away. So
yeah,
you've grown to like these characters, you know. Like it starts the show starts off simple and cute, and then it just
yeah.
like builds up to this tone over time.
It's
But
it's
like it
like
doesn't feel
since they've
awkward
built
because
up the
it makes
connection so
sense why
much,
this
it's
is
so
happening.
devastating here. Like
Yeah.
in episode 2, they
Yeah.
have the thing where she's almost going to give up 1-1, which I think works in that episode, but I don't think it works as well because it's only episode 2. You don't quite feel the connection yet. But here it
Yeah.
really works because,
Yeah,
like,
because they've
Atticus you've
grown.
known for so long, and like you presume he's dead for a moment. It's very messed up. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then also this one sets up the next one with the conductor Amelia's past really, really well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's
Um.
revealed that
Uh.
go on.
I just had like a little note about episode 8 before we move on to the next one. I was just briefly. I really like the actual like setting of that one because it's not as highlighted because the whole thing it's less about the actual like ball pit stuff, more about the obviously what actually happens in that second half. But I think I really like it as a location because it really like it sort of highlights or like sets up the second half well because
Yeah.
it's like this child-friendly like place, you know, like ball pits and stuff, very innocent looking. But there's a sort of eerie feel to it because it's like this place.
Yeah.
It usually inhabited by a lot of children, but it's very like empty feeling. Like it's not much except for that little rabbit thing. And then when the
Hmm.
actual like the conductor and all that stuff happens in the second half, it's like it's sudden. You kind of get that from the eerie atmosphere of it, literally like
Yeah.
coming into the innocent thing and destroying that. I
It's a
like
good
that.
it's a good setting for it, yeah.
But yeah, the past card is also really cool. I like this one a lot. Shows
Yeah,
off
this one
the
Yeah.
shows that the conductor's
story
a
bit of it.
person named Amelia who has
Whoa.
essentially taken over the train and has inexplicably just kind of become like a lost person, you know, like she doesn't really
Yeah.
she gets consumed with grief. She refuses to move on and come to the terms with the fact that her husband is dead and there's nothing
Which is
she
a
can
really
do.
good contrast of Tulip refusing to
Yeah.
move on from the fact that her parents are divorcing. I love this one because they have the past stuff with Tulip in the cat's car, and then they have the past stuff with Amelia in this episode, so that in the final episode they can connect, like on the fact that they can't
Yeah,
move on, which like is the whole theme of this season, but like moving on from
yeah.
difficult changes, and it's really
Yeah.
really cool how they do that.
Yeah,
I
Like
love that whole scene near the end of this one where Tulip's like mad because before now it was easy to hate her because it was easy to just personify this idea of an entirely evil person who's just doing all this shit. But now that she actually knows that well, she's a person, right? She has all this stuff happen to her too. It becomes
yeah,
harder to like still be mad after that. And I think that that's
yeah.
like an interesting
I love the
perspective to
moment
it.
where her number goes down like all the way. She's realized that she's a person. So at this point, Tulip has done with her journey, but she doesn't leave right away because since she's made that connection with her and Amelia's stuff, she wants to go back and help her because she knows that
yeah.
she herself
And
can be
also
helped.
save
That's really
Atticus, of
nice.
course.
Oh
But
yeah, of course, yes.
yeah, it's like it's a very like interesting thing. Tulip has solved her problem, but but she's not going to leave yet without solving someone else's problem and
Yeah,
saving
yeah,
the people who have helped her in this journey, or like the animal in this
yeah,
case. Yeah,
yeah,
And
it's
it's a
like
very easy thing to show growth because her whole thing was that she was suppressing other people now. And now one person
exactly,
she like just found out about for the train, she's like staying back to help a
exactly,
little bit.
exactly.
Great.
And that finale
It's
is I'll say the Cats car is the best of the season. This one's probably second best. This one's really,
Yeah,
really
I would agree with that.
I love
Uh,
this one. Yeah, I think it's like
yeah,
I love how it's like this final confrontation between Amelia and Tulip. I love how they like how she like taunts her about the idea that she could build a car that could make that could have what Tulip always wanted, but like at the same time, it's
yeah,
never gonna be your real family, you know? You're just gonna
exactly.
be
It's like
living
a
in this
show.
hollow loop that isn't what it really is in the
The
first place.
dialogue in that part is really, really good.
Yeah,
But
it's
no, I
kind of
love it because it
enjoying life.
shows it's good. They set it up well in the unfinished car. Like, oh, why is this car unfinished? Oh, because she was trying to recreate her old life.
Yeah,
But
it ends up being
they have it.
turtles, which I find kind of funny to be
Yeah,
honest.
yeah. They use that well again in season 3. But no, I like just the whole connection that Tulip's like. But wait, you can't run away from changes that happen. You can't replicate it just because you want to. See, Tulip in her memories tried to replicate that good life. But obviously, that didn't work. That wasn't realistic. That's not what happened. So
Exactly.
Yeah.
so they just have the whole thing about how even if it's difficult, you have to accept certain changes, and they do that to both Tulip and Amelia. And it's really, really nice the fact they form a connection on that. And also, I like how they show Amelia having all of those numbers just up to her neck.
Yeah,
Like
it's
at
like
this
an
point,
unsettling image that only
it's very
evolved in
unsettling.
season
Yeah,
3. And
yeah,
in general, it's just like kind of a sad thing to think about and how she's
yeah,
like she just kind of starts breaking down real when
yeah.
one gets back in his his place, which also is a good way of like wondering why the cat was like so
Oh yeah,
desperate to get one in the first place
the
in
twist
episode
with
2.
1-1 is really good, where
Yeah,
they
it was well
reveal like
built
why
on.
he was asking. Yeah, he was asking for his mom because his mom was the engine. He was the conductor of the train. That's a really good reveal. It makes that whole thing make sense. Also, okay, I like there's a little detail in this where you can see people like the passengers on the train, and you see Grace and Simon in season
Oh yeah,
3, all the way back in season
I
1.
noticed that like on the
Yeah,
rewatch.
that's
That's
such a
so
cool
cool.
detail.
Yeah, they have
Yeah,
this
and
whole
then you
See,
thing
see
I
their
planned
love
numbers
that.
out.
being super high.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
love that with the added context because in the moment you're like, oh, like the first viewing you might be like, oh, isn't that funny that their number is so much higher than everyone else's? That's a funny thing, but
yeah,
it's
and
not
then
a funny thing
It's not funny
later
once you
though.
yeah,
watch season 3.
yeah,
Mm,
yeah.
yeah,
It just kind of
but
it's very
yeah,
like
I like that because it really
subtle
had
thing
everything
there.
planned out from the
Yeah,
beginning.
exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a
Neat.
great detail. I love
I
how
re-
this concludes, and I also like the detail when Tulip returns to the real world. If you see her walk by the mirror, she has no reflection anymore, which
oh, that's neat.
I always
That's
think
neat.
about like
Oh shit,
how
that is cool. Oh my
yeah,
god.
how is
Oh
she
yeah,
ever going to like, you know, I don't know. I feel like someone's gonna
explain
notice and
that to
think
people.
she's a
Yeah,
vampire or something.
yeah.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
gonna be
Then.
freaky for like normal people, which but it's a
Yeah.
nice
I I,
detail
re- I
regardless.
really love that whole ending in general. Like you just see
Oh
Tulip, you see her father's coming to pick her up, showing oh well he's not living the event with them anymore, but she's happy about it. She's content. She's finally moved on, and it's such a nice ending that
Yeah,
yeah,
I love the
very,
ending. It's
very
very
satisfying.
wholesome and a very nice way to wrap things up for more seasons.
Yeah,
In general, I don't think this one, like, the one's overall message is pretty simple, but I do think it succeeds on it really well, and it makes for
yeah,
a very good start to this show in terms of, like,
definitely.
Oh,
introducing this
definitely.
premise and showing an average passenger experience, but also, like, includes how the more of, like, of explaining the train in a lot of ways and how, like, it's I don't know, like I love how the journey of like kind of like stopping the
Yeah.
conductor's controls also like and like I don't know, I like how stopping the conductors also like relates to Tulip's like inner
Yeah.
Yeah,
conflict
yeah.
very
I
well.
love that connection. Yeah,
Ultimately, it just has a very good message that it tells for this like very simple story. But I think it all works very, very well,
yeah,
especially when it all
yeah.
like comes together in
And
the
it's a
end.
great first
Big up
season.
to you, but
Yeah,
Yeah, very
yeah.
solid.
yeah, definitely.
I love a lot of they're all good episodes, all solid.
Yeah,
Oh,
okay.
I don't think I have much else to say about this one, to be honest. Do you guys
Yeah,
have any other
can
notes, like any
Pretty
other
well.
probably
stuff
go on to
about
season
other
4 in a bit.
episodes?
Yeah.
Uh,
Uh,
I think I'm good
yeah.
here.
Overall, Randall is a pretty cool character.
Oh hell yeah, I love
Yeah,
Randall.
I like him. Well,
Yeah,
one better, but
Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
I like all the characters in this. To be honest, they're all likable and fun.
Yeah, they're all very good. Season
Yeah.
2 has my favorite
Well,
character. But yeah,
I don't like the cat, but that's like the
I mean, yeah,
point.
that's like the point.
yeah,
You
she's
know what I mean?
interesting. She's interesting.
Yeah.
I like that she shows up every
Glad we didn't
season.
get
She's a
glad we didn't
well
get
written
Xander on this
character,
episode,
though.
if you know what I mean.
That's very
Uh,
true.
Yeah, but yeah,
And
Infinity Train season 1, very solid 9 for me. I'll
Yeah,
say, yeah, I really like
it's
this one.
I'm
I
a
go
bit
9 as
lower
well.
on
Great
this
stuff.
one. I have it at an 8, but it is like a high 8. I still
Yeah.
I love
Yeah,
this one. It's a great season. I highly recommend
It
it.
paves the way for two of my favorite seasons of television. So
exactly,
big
exactly.
credit.
Speaking of that, let's
Uh,
get into book 2, Cracked Reflection.
yeah, that
Which
is
is
such a good
which
title
is an
for it.
amazing, which like we mentioned before, it follows a completely different approach. So, like we said, last season had Tulip's reflection go on her own, in a sense, to find a sense of identity and purpose, wandering the train, and yeah, just trying to
Yeah.
like find a purpose other than being a reflection, try to become more of her own person, and
See, on a base level, I just love Infinity Train as a concept because like each season is focused on something completely different in the same setting. But like season 1 to 3 at least set up the next season within them. And that's
Yeah, there's
so
like a
so
little,
cool.
yeah, there's like a beat that leads from this to this because there's
Yeah.
the mirror tool episode in season 1, and you might think, oh, that's a fun concept, and we could just move on from that. But no, this directly builds on that, and
Yeah, she's the
I
main
really
character now.
to reflect season 1 because it's cool. The whole thing, I guess the thing is with Tulip, her whole thing is that she like represses a lot of her like feelings, just ignores other people, and that's her whole thing. But then in this season, we meet Jesse, who's the opposite of that, who he can't stand up for himself at all. He like goes along with what everyone else is saying the
mhm.
majority of the time. It's a cool reflection there with him and MT2. I love that whole like
They
thing.
have a great
The first episode
dynamic.
does a really good job setting everything up.
Yeah.
I like that scene where you see her like get rid of her like hair and all that stuff to like completely
Becoming her
avoid
own
the
person.
like
Yeah.
looking
Yeah.
like Tulip because that's the whole thing. She's not
Yeah.
another like that other person essentially. It's really
Yeah.
cool.
Mhm.
Uh, yeah, I love the whole thing where you see the Flex chasing her down and everything.
It's a
And then
great
eventually
establishment.
yeah, there's great tension there.
Yeah.
And then you meet Jesse, who like I mentioned
Jesse.
earlier. I love
Uh,
Jesse. He's such a nice
he's
guy.
Jesse's a
so
great
he's
character, yeah.
he's so
He's
like
likable and he has like a good inner
he's extremely
conflict that I think
funny.
is like we'll get more into it later because it's shown in the other episodes, but it's like a very relatable thing that I feel like a lot of kids can like struggle with in a lot of places in
Definitely.
terms of being under a poor influence in some way for the sake of fitting in
And then
yeah.
MT becomes like they influence each other better. It's so nice on you. But no, this first episode establishes them really well because they both meet the deer, Alan Dracula, who's the animal sidekick this season. He's the abacus of this season, basically.
Yeah, except he
But
doesn't talk, but like,
yeah, it doesn't talk.
except in one episode
He's a
kinda,
fun
but
one.
that's like a whole other
Except well, that's
thing.
not him.
Yeah,
It's
that's
just
not
him being
technically
obsessed.
him,
Yeah.
yeah.
But
Mhm.
no, I like the way they establish it a lot. Like they both find this deer, and it's like a kind of silly way for them to meet, but it's charming. It's nice. And it establishes both of their characters well because MT's a lot more aggressive and wanting to take the deer for herself. And then Jesse's just a lot more chill about it. It's just great at showing their personalities and what they're like through a simple interaction.
Yeah.
I like
Also,
it a
one
lot.
Yeah.
thing I like in the in the start of the first episode, I like how it's shown that now that one's like the one of the main now runs the train. I like how he shows a video about about what to do. I
Yeah, oh
find
yeah, that
that to be
part's
kind
really
of a
that part's
funny
funny.
detail. Yeah,
Yeah,
I really like one in this season. He's not in it a lot, but like the
I
moments he
like him
is
in the
in is
finale a
good.
lot. He's really funny.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, we'll get into that later.
Um,
I don't know if you guys noticed this, but else my site had these like little shorts in between seasons that have
oh,
like
I've seen those.
one
Yeah,
Oh,
they're
I've
like
heard
charming.
of
yeah, like
those.
Yeah,
It's
running the
like
train.
those
They're
documentary
cute
things
little
where he
things.
they're
talks,
very
where
Yeah,
everyone
charming.
talks
Yeah,
about cars and stuff.
yeah.
I have not
Yeah,
seen
I
any of
noticed that
those
they were on there.
actually.
I watched some. I like them a lot. They're very short and they're like
yeah, they're
little things.
charming.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's
I didn't
just nice
watch
to
it.
have more
I
of one of the
unfortunately
boys
It's
in
just
that
a good
show.
connective tissue though, because even though these are different main characters, you still have those like things that come back and like go
Yeah,
along with each season.
like the cat and
Having
one
one
are in
off
every
the top like
season.
reminds you
Yeah,
this is
yeah.
still following up season 2 and isn't
yeah.
entirely disconnected.
Yeah,
It's neat.
exactly.
I love it
It
a lot.
makes the world of the show feel like you're in the same place but with different characters, which is really really
Yeah,
cool.
like a different
Exactly.
part of the train, and like everything feels like kind of connected in some way.
Yeah,
The world of the
It's
train
yeah,
feels very realized after a while, and I like that a
yeah,
lot.
yeah,
yeah,
there's like, since it's
The
an
whole thing.
infinity train, like you said, there's infinite concepts, and I feel like this show does that well. Like in the second episode, it's kind of them just wandering through this tree, and MT and Jesse's kind of like talking to each other more, and then MT agrees with Jesse to get his number down, and like this time Jesse is actually familiar with with what the number's for and whatnot,
yeah.
but at the same time it's like it's cool because it's like taking a different approach with it. So I
I like
like
the
that.
fact that in this season, obviously in season one, there's only one real main character arc. Because one and Atticus are they're characters, but they don't have an arc in the season really. In this,
Yeah.
there's two. And it feels like a natural expansion. In fact, they're giving two characters a chance to learn something on the train. That's
Mm-hmm.
nice.
Yeah, and I feel
And
like it just works well. Yeah, I don't know what I was gonna
yeah,
say.
they have a really good dynamic. Just how they,
Yeah.
especially in okay, I won't jump ahead, but in episode four, when they connect on that, it's really good.
Oh
Just through
yeah,
the
I love that
conversation, it's so good.
so much.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
see, that's another thing. Season three, I think, is better, but I would argue two is my personal favorite, mainly because it's easier to watch. Like I
fair
don't
enough.
like watching season three very much. Very
Fair
sad.
enough.
But I
Fair
just
enough.
love
That's fair.
the main characters in this season. Like they play off each other really well. It's just really nice stuff that like I
Yeah,
appreciate a lot
it's
as we
yeah,
go forward. The next one does a lot with that really well. I love
yeah.
the I forget the family tree car. I like
The family
the
tree card.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that one's
visuals are
good.
great with the trees and the branches and how the like the
they're like
twist near
different
the end
family.
where just
Yeah, it's cool.
yeah we're just like talking about that's what like stops the branches from growing. It's another really development one because early on just setting up the character dynamics to like make things work. But it's another really fun one. I like that. Yeah, I think it's episode two. I love that part near the end where they're talking after all this, and MT's like, "Oh, your number's low. What was it at before?" And he says like it went up or something, and there's that like she's like flicks him. It's a funny
Oh
visual. I
yeah,
like
they,
that.
they do that a lot where MT flicks him.
It's kind of
Um,
hurt
Yeah, it's
though.
funny.
Honestly, that's like
they bring that
literal
back at the very
glass
end. It's
or
funny.
chrome.
Yeah,
That's
no,
gotta
it's
hurt.
funny in the final
Yeah, yeah,
episode where Jesse flicks MT, but since she's made of metal, it hurts him back.
yeah.
Yeah,
I love that.
That's
yeah,
funny. I
So
I
like
love that
that. Yeah,
vision.
I forgot about
Yeah,
that. Yeah, I don't
yeah,
have much to say about the second episode. The third one I do like. I like how they got Wayne Knight to
oh, I
play that
really like
cloud
this
thing.
one.
That's
Yeah,
funny.
I noticed that was him because I recognized the voice because it's like Al from Toy Story 2. It's
Oh
the
yeah,
guy,
yeah,
the
yeah.
yeah.
guy.
Mm,
Yeah, I really like this episode because it's a great one to actually showing off why Jesse is there because that's like a whole thing of it. Because you
yeah,
see, like Tulip is very blatant in her problems, even in those early episodes. Because obviously because you've seen her home life, but it's like oh, you get why she's on there. With Jesse, at the first you doesn't really click why because he's this very very nice guy, always like jovial. You're like, well, what's he doing on the train? But here
Yeah.
through the map thing you like slowly learn, oh, he's not here because he's an asshole to other people. He's here because he needs a fucking backbone. And I love
yeah,
that
Mm-hmm.
conversation near the end where he's just talking about what he wants and he's like he was talking about how like he wanted to do this one thing
The
on the
swim
swim
team.
team, but
Yeah.
he's like, oh, but the team didn't want that, so he has to do this. And he's like, oh well, I don't really want to do this, but I want to help out my other friends. So he has to do this, and like they don't
yeah,
explicitly say anything, but from there you're like, oh, this is why, because he
He's
has like
kind
this
of like
really bad
a
like character.
pushover and just like kind
yeah,
of goes
Yeah,
definitely.
along with it for the sake of being
yeah,
accepted and I guess liked, which is a very relatable issue for kids to go through.
Yeah,
And
that's
I
why
feel like
Josh
that
is literally
yeah.
contrasts
me.
That's what I was
really
just
well
about to
with
say. That.
MT's
Yeah.
purpose.
Yeah, exactly. You're both
You know,
pussies.
Jesse's definitely my favorite character just in the show in general because of
I
how just nice he is and how like his arc is
Yeah,
very
he's
it's very simple
likable. He
compared to
has like a
MT.
good inner conflict that's like
Yeah,
relatable and
mm,
contrast with MT's really
yeah,
well. I also
yeah, and
really
also
like
yeah,
how
yeah,
in this episode it is shown how much like it shows that they're not like huge friends with how MT is basically rushing the process just so she could like continue her life and kind of just have Alan Dracula to herself and whatnot.
Yeah, because
It's
that's the
like,
initial thing. But then
yeah.
in the next episode, the Toad Car, they connect really, really nicely, and you
Oh
learn more
yeah.
about both of them through
Yeah.
that.
All
Talk
right.
about this
So
one now
Toad
then.
Car,
Toad
first
Car
note
is
has Sprig in
amazing.
it, so I like it. But
Yeah, it has me. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm Jesse's
Sprig.
younger
Hey, the
brother.
same actor.
oh my
Yeah.
god, it was so embarrassing when I recognized his voice. I was like, oh my god, it's
Yeah, I
him.
had that same experience.
And
Yeah. Mm.
Yeah,
I was,
it's
that
weird
was
how
fun.
it's
But
weird
even
how
besides
though I
that,
thought it was
I
really
really like it
distracting
as like an
how
inverse of
Jesse
the.
wasn't British but his brother is. That's kind of weird, I guess.
Very true. Very true.
That's true. But
Yeah.
yeah, on the Toad Car, I really like as it essentially is a flip of the usual Infinity Train car, like I was talking about earlier,
Hmm.
where a lot of them are based on the concepts of the car and all this wacky stuff that happens. This one is essentially an anti-car. Like there's nothing in it except this one toad that you gotta kick and then you move on to the
I
next
think
one.
that's just a
But they're
funny
not doing that.
concept on
So
top of
Yeah.
working
yeah, it
well
is
with the
funny. I love the
characters.
Toto. He just like he doesn't want to
Kick
do
me,
it.
but
Please,
It's
don't.
really
kick
funny.
me.
It's so I feel bad.
I like his
Yeah.
voice as well. I don't know why. It
Yeah.
just cracks
Oh
me
Yeah.
up
I
for
like
some
when he
reason.
comes back in the later episode just randomly.
Yeah,
He's been
Yeah,
treated
yeah.
well.
that's
Yeah.
nice.
No, oh my god, it's so funny that joke later where he's like,
My
oh yeah,
name's
I'm still getting
Parrots now.
people pay me to.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, he calls himself Parrots now. Is that your name? No,
Yeah,
he wants people to call
yeah.
him that anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, he's funny. I like him.
Season
But
season two, I think, is like the best of its comedy as well. Like a lot of the cars are funny.
yeah,
Like the episode 5 is like very comedically focused. Like it's not, yeah.
Hmm.
Episode 4,
yeah. It's another thing the show focuses on a lot, but it's
yeah,
neat when they
yeah,
a little bit.
yeah,
But yeah, so back to what I was saying about Toad Car. The whole thing is it's like that because they're just stuck in this one location. They take that time for character growth, really.
yeah,
And I love it when shows do this, where they have two opposing perspectives, but they don't make it out one is right, one is wrong. You get both
yeah,
because
yeah,
Yeah.
because this is when the Flex finally catch up to them. And MT's like mad at Jesse because Jesse might sell her out. And you get it from her perspective. She's put in all this work, all this time. She wants to make it on her own, right? Her whole thing. But from Jesse's perspective, you get it because he knows nothing about this person really. And from his perspective, why
Yeah.
would he not trust those guys? There's this real dichotomy where you get both of them, and there's no bad guy, no good guy. It's just I love stories like that where you don't gotta make it so black and white. It's really good stuff here.
Yeah, and like you can
Love, love
yeah,
that.
understand both the perspectives because on one hand it's like like Jesse doesn't really like have a good reason to not entirely trust MT because like
Exactly.
he was never told that she was a criminal and that it was like a whole thing and they
And
haven't really
plus,
become
like
friends
MT
yet.
very
So
purposefully acts vague, so like he doesn't know most of that stuff. So like even if there was good reason, he wouldn't be aware of it. So why should he not trust someone who's actually like talking about it all? I think it's
yeah.
a really good
And
character
I
to
like
have.
how they also show Jesse's backstory in this with him watching the video of him being a pushover to his friends, and then MT calls that out, and they both like learn more about each other through that. Like they both learn about each other's past at the same time, and then from that point on, they're more friendly. There's a really nice scene once they get out of the car where they like put their trust
Mhm.
in each other that I really really like. It's a really nice moment as
Yeah.
well. Yeah,
yeah.
It is a nice thing. Like by the end of it, they're much more casual with each other, and
yeah,
they're actually bonding over it. And then
yeah,
I like the resolution to it a lot, where they actually got to get out of the car, but Jesse doesn't want his number to go up, so gets Alan
Yeah.
Dracula to kick the
Yeah,
toad for him.
oh
that
yeah,
was
And then
a
the
yeah,
toad
yeah.
gets sent.
funny
Funny.
conclusion. They
Yeah,
That's what it
yeah.
I like how
Good
both of
for
them
them.
just don't like kick the toad because then they're just like kind of like not because like then if they kick the toad then like they haven't really progressed in any way. Jesse's number would just go down and uh and then
MT would
and
get
then
caught by
MT would
the
just kind of
flux.
like
Yeah,
prove prove Jesse right with like being a bit like you can understand why MT is kind of like the way she is at times of like pushing some people away, and it's all because it's kind of like an act of jealousy because she just desperately longs to be considered an individual deep down
She's
and
never gotten that
finding this
chance at like
purpose.
forming bonds with people. She's just been
Yeah,
observing Tulip doing that. So it
yeah,
makes sense.
exactly,
that's what
And
I
also
think
she's
makes
been
it work
treated
so
horribly
well.
by like everyone else on the train, or at least by the
exactly,
flux because she's not seen as a
exactly.
person. So, the fact that she meets someone as nice as Jesse and then she becomes like nicer from that, I think is really, really cool.
Hmm.
But
It
they
Yeah,
really help each other out because MT's more aggressive but also she's less of a pushover than Jessie. Obviously, she's not going to let anything happen to her. But also, she can be too aggressive, and since Jessie's nicer, they can both give each other like something good from that. I really like all that.
Yeah, they
Exactly.
both
It's about
gain
Such a
a
from
nice
one
balance.
bond.
another as
Yeah,
people, despite
yeah,
one being a passenger and one being considered to be a denizen, which is where
yeah,
MT's arc starts to develop by the time we get to the end of
yeah.
the
It's
season.
such a good bond. Yeah. But
Mm.
yeah.
I
Then
think
like I
that's all
said,
I got about covering
yeah,
Toad Card
Next one
pretty
is
well. There's a
yeah,
also
lot of
is
that's
pretty
like my
great too.
okay, that's actually I was gonna say it was like my second. It was like, oh no, there's that one, and that one, and that other one. So it's
yeah,
not. It's probably not actually that high up in the season, but I think it's a really cool standout one.
yeah.
That isn't.
I just think the last
Yeah,
four are my favorite, particularly the Wasteland and
yeah,
number
I would
4. Yeah,
agree. Yeah.
yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
Number
Yeah, the
They're so
Parasite
nice.
card is probably the least good, but I still
Yeah,
like it.
yeah, I think
it's fun. I
it's
don't
a
really have much to
funny.
say about it. It's just kind of fun.
Yeah, it's like a test,
Yeah.
kind of like a test for their friendship with Alan Dracula, with him being
Yeah,
like possessed by this freaking
Harry,
parasite
Parasite.
named Perry.
Yeah,
I like his voice. I don't
yeah,
know. I think there were some funny
yeah,
jokes, and I like how he just and I don't know. It's like I like how they have to choose this conflict between them with like having someone to listen to and also comfort them so they can
yeah,
potentially achieve their own goals, or just like not, or just going through with helping Alan Dracula because they just care about him regardless if he can talk or not. It's like a good, interesting
yeah.
conflict that ties
There's
into
some good
both of their
visuals
characters
of
well.
since Alan Dracula can shapeshift. I get a lot out of that.
Yeah,
Like
they
he
get a
can
lot of
turn into
cool
Yeah.
anything.
visuals out of
Yeah.
that. In general, if we're talking about the overall animation in Infinity Train, it
Oh,
is
it's so
has a
good.
lot of
Yeah.
potential.
Oh,
It
I
does look
love
very
it. Like,
colorful and creative, and it all like perfectly captures the car
Yeah.
concept the writers are able to think of.
Yeah. Those last three
yeah.
episodes are like so well animated as well.
Oh,
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh.
it's all good in that way. The next
Yeah.
Yeah.
one, which
I'm not
is
much more on the Parasite one either. I just think it's
It's
kind of cool
fun.
seeing Alan Dracula talk because you don't see that like
Yeah.
anywhere else. It's a funny visual seeing this like realistic looking deer speaking with like a
yeah,
cartoon voice.
Yeah.
yeah, it's
Yeah, I
Yeah.
like
kind of
that whole
funny.
like conclusion they come to. I like, yeah, they could have him like technically give support, but it's ultimately disingenuous because it's not him, you know. And they actually move on from that. It's fun, and yeah, the second half I think really like heats up. This is when they like a lot of the intense stuff comes back,
Yeah.
and like
Hmm.
they do more.
Lucky
The
cat
Lucky
car.
Cat car, I really like that one. This I love the visual. I feel like I say I love the visuals of the show, but they have a lot of with every train. It looks really cool. I love this one, the whole like carnival looking thing. Now they gotta
Yeah.
go for all this stuff to
Yeah.
get the.
Yeah.
It's very cool looking. I like
Yeah.
all
They
that.
bring back the cat, which is fun. And Randall, because wherever the cat is, Randall
Yeah,
shows up.
Yeah.
Randall.
Yeah.
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 Um.
Uh,
Mm.
Also, Grace shows up at the end of this episode.
Yeah.
Grace,
Not
the
much.
main character of
Oh yeah,
season
they
3.
do.
Yeah, I like that thing.
Yeah, yeah,
I don't have too much to say about episode 6 other than I like it and I think it's good.
yeah,
Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
I like
Pretty
the
cool.
little like character moment in the middle where Jesse just kind of reassures that he's not just doing this for his benefit, but MT's benefit as well.
yeah,
It's
Oh
a sweet
yeah, and then
little bit in
MT's
that.
like
and I like how
MT's taken
MT
aback
gets
by that.
mad
Like someone
over
finally sees her as a person. Yeah,
like
Yeah,
someone
yeah.
not seeing
It's very
her as a person. And I also
yeah,
like
it's very
yeah,
her
very nice.
realization that like that Jesse's gonna just do what he can to take her with him back to the real world,
yeah,
which I think is
yeah. I love that.
nice.
Yeah,
Yeah,
And you know, it's like you're
yeah.
starting to
It's a
it's
nice thing
so
about
realize
good.
how
a
Like
bit
like
more.
Jesse literally comes back onto the train to save her. That's so nice.
yeah.
Yeah,
That bit
it's
Because by
very
this
nice.
point it's like mutual and not just one of them kind of helping the other so they can get out.
hmm
It's great stuff.
Yeah, yeah,
Also, yeah, and there's Grace at the end of this one, which after see it's funny. You watch season 2 and you're like, wow, Simon's a bitch. Grace
Oh
what a
sucks,
yeah.
and it's like,
dick.
I remember when I initially watched season 3, I rewatched this episode right after, and I'm like, well, I hated them at first, but like, Jesus Christ, what happened
Yeah, you didn't
after season 3?
understand them at the moment, but like, damn. Anyways, we'll
Yeah,
talk much
yeah,
more about them in season 3. But in this one, they work
yeah,
well into like becoming as similar people
yeah,
to like Jesse's arc with Jeffy's like
yeah,
pushover part of
mm,
his like overall personality and arc is like playing through his conflict in this one, and then he ends up
Yeah.
standing up to Grace and Simon by the end of him, realizing that he shouldn't be under control by like other people, and if it, especially if it like hurts people that he genuinely forms connections with.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You notice
Exactly.
how this episode is episode 7, and episode 7 of season 1 is also setting up season 2, when this one sets up season 3. And I
Oh
noticed that.
shit! I even noticed that, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's cool actually.
But yeah, no, it
But
does a really good job at like setting up season 3, just introducing Grace and Simon's character and working well within context here. Like how Grace sort of manipulates Jesse, but at the end he stands up for himself and he's like, "No, I care about MT as a person."
I'll talk about this
Yeah.
like more in season 3, but the idea of the Apex is like really cool to use with this
Yeah,
train, because
yeah.
of course there's gonna be people who are like gonna rebel against the train thing and start to take it as their domain.
it is.
I guess
It's like
they
such a
expand upon
cool.
much more in season 3.
It's such a
Yeah,
cool
I think
expansion
episode
of the
6 does a
concept.
really good job at that because you see they're like after they Jesse and MT they do all the carnival stuff. You see all these kids coming and they're just like wrecking shit up. They're all like disheveled and it's like, well, what the fuck is going on here? Because you're so used to this idea of trains for people getting out. They're all like trying to figure this out, and you see like you don't have to hear anything, but you see from there it's like no, they're not doing that. They're just fucking around. And then that out of I one last thing on episode 6 is like that visual where you see Grace's arm with the numbers
Oh
coming
yeah,
out. It's like, oh,
that's
really
neat.
cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, it creates a really good contrast. The show is really good at contrasting us, and I love all that.
Yeah,
A
yeah,
lot in this.
yeah.
Um,
Oh yeah, and
episode 7.
the ending of them all.
The ending
Oh,
with Jesse disappearing into
that's
the
such
portal, and while he like
such an
slowly
intense
withers
moment.
away, it's sad, man. It's sad. You feel so
Yeah,
bad
man.
for MT.
Yeah, oh my god, it's so bittersweet because you're like, oh wow, they got the train, but then MT can't go. She doesn't have a number or whatever. It's like,
Just that
oh god,
visual of her like on the ground with the flux behind her after Jesse's gone. It's so sad. Like it's
because you see
conveyed
that
very.
like how the pain in her eyes and everything. She's like, oh fuck, it was so close, but so far at the same time.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Man, it's
Yeah.
you really like grow to appreciate these characters, even though there's
Yeah.
only like 10 episodes. Though it's just really paced well. You
Yeah,
know,
definitely.
like all these cars. I mean, all these cars are designed to help like allow people to grow and whatnot. So yeah, it's like this entire show has a really good concept. By the way, it's like there's like a lot of story potential for it, which is why it's such a shame that it was canceled.
Yeah.
Anyways,
but you know, I'm still very happy with what we got. So
yeah, regardless, this is a show that is still like definitely worth remembering, and the fact that like we said, only piracy is the only way you can watch this show. It sucks.
Yeah. Anyway, The Wasteland. This is
genuinely one of my favorite episodes of the entire show, if I'm being honest.
Definitely.
Oh my god, so good.
It's so depressing, but like, it's so good.
There's this one scene. It's so good. First off, the atmosphere it really adds to like the emotional levity of this episode between MT and Agent Mace, and I feel like this all culminates in like this setting allows to add this like this very powerful moment between MT and Agent Mace, where Agent Mace like questions her like purpose with like they ask these very philosophical questions, and it leads to one of the most like compellingly rich moments in the series, because on one hand Agent Mace is like you understand like these questions, they make sense to ask,
like, is she a real person?
Yeah, exactly. And like how she's basically just been fulfilling her role as a denizen, but at the same time you understand that she's grown so much since she's met Jesse, you know. So like on one hand she is basically fulfilled similar roles to a passenger, but like in some ways it's like unrealistic for her to be a human. But like despite her being unsure about like what will happen when she goes into the real world as a Chrome girl, her being unsure about her own destiny is another thing that just makes her human in a lot of ways. And I feel like that's what makes this episode so
like
emotionally
the way
strong.
this is set up is really good, because like MT is without Jesse and now she's alone facing the very thing that's trying to stop her from achieving freedom. And
Exactly.
just that whole conversation they have where she's constantly trying to justify, I am a person, I deserve to have another one, I deserve to get off the train. And he's just constantly throwing reasons why she isn't, and it starts like affecting her mentality. And just the visual of them being like inside a tumbleweed while they're doing that is really
Yeah,
like helpful
tumbleweed
for that as
made
well.
by the antlers of Alan Dracula. Yeah.
Oh my god, I love the voice acting in this part is insane. I forget
Yeah,
who
the
like
voice acting in
played
the
the
series is all
played the
good.
guy, but
Yeah.
it's so good because he has this like confidence, even as he's like for a lot of this, his body's like half like
Yeah, he's
melted
literally
off, and he's
lost his
still just
legs.
there. But even
Yeah.
still, he's just like he's so insistent about like, well, does he actually care about you? You know, you could stay here. You know, you don't actually want to be on it. And this real like moral thing where MT's just breaking down like more angry and angry. He has this
It's
confidence
so
despite
sad,
literally like
bro.
dying, and it's so just oh my
At this
god, it's
point,
so
Agent
just
Mace can't
insane,
literally
though.
can't track her down anymore because he doesn't have legs, he can't walk. But he's still able to get to her like mentally just by telling her all of the stuff that he knows is going to mess her up. It's so devastating.
Yeah.
It's like he's using his last ditch effort to still get to her. And then that ending, oh my god, the ending of this one is so funny. Where she like swings around and throws him onto the wheel. Yeah. The visual of that is very, very messed up. Because
Yeah.
initially
Yeah,
he tries to like,
Oh my
oh,
god,
if
yeah,
I'm gonna
that.
die, I'll still take you with me. But then,
But then he just brutally
it's like,
fucking disintegrates. Like, damn.
yeah. And you get a visual of like his
oh,
hat flying away as
yeah,
well.
yeah,
It looks so such a
Yeah,
good
it's
death
such an
scene.
emotionally strong episode in so many ways, and it like paves the
definitely,
way for the
definitely.
finale of this
Yeah,
season. And it's like,
honestly, yeah,
yeah, honestly, honestly, I think this episode is just amazing, just for that
it
scene
is
with
amazing.
Agent Mace and MT
Yeah,
alone. Just it's so
yeah,
good. Like, damn.
yeah,
Mhm.
Anyways, I
yeah.
guess we'll get to the next step, unless you guys have to say anything else. I know I kind of like went on a
No, I
total
think
tangent
that's it.
there.
I think
No, I
um,
covered that one pretty well.
what
I just,
what
I guess it's just another thing. I know the show like pushes all these like boundaries. I know it's like a big thing people always point out, like, how did they get away with this? Whoa, all this dark
What?
stuff in a kid show? That's insane. And I don't know, you see like fucking Velskabum94 talk
yeah,
about this shit. I find it annoying when
yeah,
people especially highlight that. But no, it's not like none of it is just dark for like the sake of it. It's all like I'll just like if they censored any of this, if they like maybe like didn't if they didn't have like I'm trying to think of alternate ways where like the ending of that one, if they didn't have something like that where Mace just like dies, maybe they just like knock him out or something, like just leave him hanging. That would not be as powerful, but I think
yeah.
to
No,
like
not at all.
have him like go into the wheel and it's applied just like chopped up and you see his like hat. He's like that like makes it much more powerful and it's not just like dark for the sake of it. I don't know. I hope that makes sense. I was just thinking
Yeah, no,
about that
yeah,
because
no, it does.
I don't
They
like the.
use
I just don't
they
like the
use
way
the dark.
people talk.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the show uses
because
its
I
dark
just don't
stuff
like the
really,
way that
really
people
well.
talk about the show sometimes. Where they're like,
Yeah,
"Whoa, how did they get away with that?" Like, because it's good. Like, fuck,
yeah,
it's just annoying.
yeah.
Like,
Yeah, that's
I
Mm.
fair.
they have to like advertise the fact it's not dark for no reason. Damn it, it's
It's dark
good.
because
But
it's the
anyway,
good stuff. Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Anyways, next
Tape Car
episode.
is also really good. It's great,
Yeah,
Yeah, it
this
very
one
entertaining
has
definitely
story.
okay.
has
This one I really like,
moments.
not just for like the character stuff of MT, but the way they expand the concept of the train in this is really cool because they like show you people like in the pods coming into the train and getting their numbers. That's so cool because it's like, oh, you've seen people coming with their numbers, but this is showing how it happens. It's like a
Also,
really natural
Yeah,
expansion of the world. But
I want to mention something quickly. Can we just talk
yeah,
about that poor old man that MT just kind of
oh
like
yeah, he just
threw out
throws
of
them
his
away.
pod? Like that
Yeah,
poor guy. What the fuck is gonna happen to him now? He's
I
probably
don't
gonna
know.
fucking die.
Yeah,
Like I guess MT
yeah,
is still like kind of an unwill. Like, I don't know. Like she still has some growth to do, but regardless, I guess that's like a reason why she's still trying to get her number. But regardless, it's like it's still like damn. Anyways, back
yeah.
to the actual episode conflict. I do love the ending scene where MT's reaction to not getting a number and then just
Oh, it's so
breaking
devastating.
shit is probably just one of the best, just one of the best scenes in the show, man. Like it's
Definitely,
so
definitely.
good.
Because this whole
definitely.
thing is very sad. Like MT going through all of this like effort, like trying to find a way to get her number, and she's like, "Why does she get a number, but not me? I'm a person too." Uh,
Yeah.
so
Oh my god.
these two are
The
just
voice
really
acting there is so
devastating.
good. She's like
Yeah,
insisting, but the system's like,
yeah,
nah. I don't know about that.
I think this and the last one being so devastating for MT makes the ending of the next one even more satisfying than it already is. Because like she's gone through all of this
Yeah,
hardship,
definitely.
especially in these
Mhm.
two. But yeah, no, this
I do
one's
really love
really.
the visuals of the end to like the place where they like add the number and do all
Oh
that,
yeah, it looks
like
really
the
cool.
green tube and everything. It looks really cool. I like all that stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
But
and 1-1 shows
uh,
up as well. Yeah,
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
it's like, oh my god, it's him.
It's 1-1.
yeah,
I also like how he's in the fucking no face thing from
yeah,
I don't
yeah.
even does that
It's a
thing have
funny
a
idea.
name? I just call it the no face thing. No, I
That's how
don't
I think of it as. Yeah,
yeah, I'll just call it
That
that.
makes
But
sense.
anyways, yeah, I like how he's in that now. And I guess that leads to
yeah.
the finale, which while I think I
Oh, I
like the
love that now.
Wasteland a bit more, I love this one as a
That is,
finale and think it's one of the best
yeah.
episodes of the
These two
season.
are the best of the season, definitely.
Yeah.
This and the
This is
Wasteland.
like
Yeah.
my favorite episode of Infinity Train. Maybe not the best one because season 3 trumps it a lot, but this one's so satisfying. The whole
Yeah.
thing, like top to bottom, I love this one. The This is a great bit, like right at the beginning, where MT's just talking about like how like just not to be categorized and all these like she's not like this, not that. She kind of trying to consider herself a person. And after all this shit, it means a lot coming from the end. It's really powerful stuff, and like just seeing the contrast there because one's so casual about it is like nah, you gotta fulfill your
Yeah.
role on the train, and it's like you're against him because he's like obviously very casual, very likable character,
Yeah,
but it's
1-1's
still
a
just
very
like oh come
innocent
on,
soul, despite
Yeah.
so it's like hard to hate him.
exactly.
And like, yeah, he basically
Exactly.
just
He's just
kind
really
of
he's just fulfilling his job, I guess. It's no
yeah,
scheme
Yeah.
on
he
his
Yeah.
believes
back.
that
But
MT like works as a denizen already, and like you can understand 1-1's perspective, but at the same time, I guess he just doesn't understand like
See, he's like a
the
robot, so he's just going by the system that he knows.
yeah.
yeah
Moving
It
right.
sucks for MT, but But
yeah
then, okay, one of my favorite moments in this is when Jesse comes back and they have a really nice heartfelt reunion. It's like,
And then the
it's like the
train
fact that
starts
he,
glitching because 1-1 doesn't know what to do because his problem is
yeah,
that
yeah,
MT is alone on the train now, and then he just like
yeah,
keeps asking himself a question, not sure what to do anymore. I
yeah.
find that funny.
I love the way that they resolve it with Jesse reflecting his number onto MT.
And
Like
then
that's a
like one
great,
one, I don't even think 1-1 cared. He was just like, yeah, sure, whatever. And then he just opened the
but not,
portal.
yeah. I like that as like a
Mhm.
visual metaphor because you can see it as they affected each other because since she's reflecting it, first of all, she's reflecting something because she was a reflection. Like that I find neat.
Yeah.
But yeah, but then I just like that as a visual thing 'cause it's showing how much they help each other with this stuff. Like in the end, he's the one who helps her get off the train. Like yeah, that's nice.
They really
And
do both
Yeah.
reflect one another.
exactly.
Yeah. Nice.
But
Anyways, uh,
Then the ending of this one I really love.
yeah,
MT
I saw this
succeeds.
serialized review because I was going through that said it in a way you could call it like unsatisfying because the whole thing because there's like another way you can see another ending of the season where it's like maybe more bittersweet where like MT stays on the train and it's like a tragic thing or she like gets a number but has to go through that whole process on it again and I get
and that
that like maybe
I don't
you
think that
want
second
something
one will
more than
work
that
because
but
season 1 and season 3 do that. So I don't think that really
yeah
works. Yeah,
Yeah.
but no,
yeah
Sometimes
but
it's
I think
nice just to have a happy ending, you know?
yeah no
yeah,
I
yeah,
agree I much prefer this I'm just
And I think it just
relaying that
definitely,
as
works
an
in this
opposing
case,
like
seeing despite
perspective
all the shit MT went through, she got what she wanted. And I feel like that just
I
leads
think
to
no
such
I
an
think
yeah.
amazing ending.
It's beautiful. It's
it's a
beautiful. Yeah,
beautiful ending ultimately because see you don't really know what happens to after she gets off she sees Jesse and Nate too there's like the nice scene
Greg.
there
Yeah,
but you don't really get to it ends at this perfect point where it's open because after like all this time where she's forced into this one little boxed off space where it has to be a reflection be this be that she just gets to live and the fact that you
yeah.
just like see
Mm.
that great music in the back and I like the it's kind of like silly. The first thing she sees, oh, I'm Lake now. The first thing she saw was like
I like
Oh,
that
Jesse.
because it's the
little
first
lake,
real
a
thing that she sees is what she wants to call herself. Now she's like finally feels real. So the first thing she sees in the real world is the thing that she wants to go by. And also I like that it's a reflection. She sees her own reflection
So,
because now
so
she's
now,
Yeah,
finally
because
a
the
now,
person.
wait, now
reflection. Yeah,
she
that's
has
I
true.
her
love
own
that.
reflection. Wow, that's
Yeah, it's so
interesting.
nice.
now that I think about
Yeah.
it, what's funny about that is that now she's got now that I don't know, she probably feels bad for having a reflection now.
Yeah.
Oh well.
Fun.
Maybe that
Mm.
should have been the
Is it
next season. The rest of the show could be the
Infinity?
same
Every
thing.
season is
Every
MT's
season.
reflection trying to escape.
Never ending chain.
Yeah.
Literally an infinity train.
Yeah. One last thing I want to mention is that one detail I liked is that the other agent who was shown to be more civil compared to Mace, Agent Steve, ends up it's shown in this finale that he has now become much more much more, just much more like violent like
Yeah,
Mace
because
is
she
be
killed
after
Mace.
he's dead.
Yeah.
Like he's consumed
Yeah.
with grief. Now I think that's a
I
cool detail. It just makes
I love
him
the moment where they throw the thing for Alan Dracula and he just explodes the agent. Like he has a role in
yeah.
this. I love
In
it.
general, the
Yeah.
Flex are really good antagonists of this season.
Yeah, they have
They
cool designs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of them kind of reminds me of Oppenheimer with like the hat.
Oh my
With the
god, it
hat,
does,
yeah.
yeah.
I see that, yeah.
Yeah, you see, okay, so you get it.
Yeah.
But
Imagine the
yeah,
wasteland with Oppenheimer.
I could see it.
Yeah.
That's when the bomb went off when he
Yeah,
Yeah.
gets grind up
that
into
makes
the
sense.
wall.
Einstein is MP.
Anyway, yeah.
Perfect. Mm.
Um.
Yeah.
Truman can be Simon.
Hope now Xander's gonna want to come back.
Uh-oh.
Oh, not again.
Any,
Whoa.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
anyways,
Hmm.
you guys have anything else
Speaking
to
of
say about
Simon,
this season? I feel like when we go by these episodes and overall that's like the best way we are able to like break down the
you
full
know, I like
season.
going episode by because it gets like a good
yeah, that's a good.
sense of
It's a
everything going
narrative based
top to
show, so
bottom.
you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
Yeah.
Easy to,
But
I like that.
what a season!
I don't think I
Yeah.
have much more.
Amazing.
It's just another visual compliment because I love the sunset and the ending of everything.
Oh
It
yeah, that
looks
sunset
It
is
looks
great.
amazing.
really nice. I don't know if we
Yeah.
mentioned it, but I like that scene before Jesse gets on the train where he's talking to his brother again about everything that's happened.
Oh yeah, that's nice.
Oh, yeah,
It's
that's
nice
nice.
because the last thing you saw was I think Jesse mentioned something about like the last time he saw his brother was that Maury was peer pressured by his friends into like harming him. So it's sweet that they have like a
Yeah, it's nice.
little moment that gets
Yeah.
back to that. And then,
Yeah.
it's all a very likable cast of characters, and it's a great, very very satisfying conclusion. I really love season
It's
2.
very impressive how this season is able to do like 2 character arcs in one, and they both get really good
Exactly,
focus.
and that's
And
that's the
Yeah.
whole thing. Like I said off the top, this is like my go-to show to recommend to people because it's like so short. But because of that, there's like they pack so much into all these like little things. You go up to about like, wow, there's just so much to analyze from like metaphorically, like what stuff could mean all the character arc stuff, like what like the number and like allegory thing. I think it's all
exactly.
very
Yeah.
very
It's
neat.
it's a show that leaves you with a lot to think about ultimately.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's why it's so cool. I
Yeah.
love season 2.
All right, you guys get into our ratings now.
10 out of 10.
Go a
Season
solid
2.
go a 10 on this
Yeah.
one. I think that's
love
fair.
it.
There's
I'm giving it a
enough
9.
great, fantastic episodes for me.
Yeah.
Nine's fair. That was my first rating.
Yeah.
I think really just really the general characters of it is what elevates for me. It's weird to call a show like this comforting, but I just love that main character dynamic so much, and MT is my
Very, very
favorite
charming.
character. And like
Yeah.
all of Infinity Train
Jesse's
for
my
like
favorite.
the whole intrigue and like the
Yeah.
arc and the way she plays off Jesse and everything.
Yeah.
It's all so good.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. And somehow this is still not the best
season.
season. Yeah.
Somehow.
Yeah,
Holy
season
shit.
3.
Season 3. Book 3, Cult of the Conductor. Holy shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're in for something
don't
here.
know.
So this is a continuation from the last one. So like season 1 when they established the reflect mirror tulip in book 1, and then book 2 they established the apex in the form of Grace and Simon. This one now focuses on Grace and Simon, who have been stranded from their apex and now have to go through car to car like normal passengers, attempting to make it back to the apex, I guess. But I guess we'll
The first episode establishes it really well, just showing a scene of them in the musical car, just destroying stuff. It's a really good scene visually as well. It establishes
the season starts out very eerie. They got that like music playing over like this musical thing, and then I was like it's an odd vibe where it's like, what's going on? Then you actually see them like all ram smacking the car and doing all these things. Season 3, I think, is it's so cool to me in the way it's structured because it's this subversion essentially of how the usual Infinity Train formula goes. We're based on season 1 and 2, like we got this madcap group of people going for the train. They're learning all their stuff. However, it all just feels off. It's very hollow because based on season 2, Simon and Grace, they're not the type of people that are gonna be learning like lessons in that sense, or like have a want to get off the train like everyone else because they're obsessed with the number going
It's a
up as
really
opposed to
neat
down, which is
subversion of
back.
the number thing. How instead of working to get their number down, they're working to get their number up because they think that means power. And that's neat because the numbers used.
And essentially by the end, they have convinced themselves that the number equals like a sense of power and strength.
Yeah, and they have
that
an
it is
entire
something
cult
that
like
they
called
should savor and
Conductor.
keep with them.
Yeah.
Because numbers go up after all, usually.
Yeah, definitely. It just it's just so cool that like whole thing, the first episode establishes that like really well. I love this a little bit in episode 1 where like all the Apex people are showing like stuff to Grace, and Grace is like, "Oh, that's great. I'll put this in my special pile, but
Yeah,
don't
she
tell
just throws it
anybody else." And
away. Yeah.
But then she says that to everyone, so it's like no, she's like trying to make everyone
as you
feel
can
special.
see,
And
these
reality, none
two
of them really
characters
stand
are
out.
more
Weird.
unlikable than anyone we've seen on this train so far.
Yeah.
So how
The
could
others
you
are very like.
possibly redeem both of them?
Remember when Grace was the
Well,
more
we'll talk about that
unlikable
later.
one?
Yeah,
That's funny.
Yeah.
But
Okay, this
episode
one
1
also
just
has.
another like. Sorry, Josh, go
This one also has like the turtles from the unfinished car come back.
Oh yeah.
on. Oh my god, I love that.
I
I love that part where they're like, "You're breaking into my house," and it's
Your
like
house is already
the
broken.
door. There's no door, so we can just walk in. It's fun.
Yeah, they've essentially have built this this organization that has rebelled against the train and have like it's a cool concept. Like it's very interesting.
Yeah.
And then you wrap these in and then you isolate the two main leaders of this, which transition into the second episode where they're now isolated and have to make it through car to car and have to, I guess, like ignore the temptations of the train of trying to change them, which in some ways might be like another reason why they could get their numbers up, even though they're not like aware of the train's purpose, regardless. But you know what I mean.
Yeah. Like we said, it's a really neat like subversion of it. Just how this season's entire formula is flipped because this time they're focusing on people who not only have been on a train for a while but have an entirely different perspective on it. It's a very
they
cool.
don't want to get off is the whole thing.
Yeah,
And
exactly,
I love it because even in moments that want to be painted as nice, it's just hollow because it's not leading towards anything.
No.
Anything good. Episode 2 does this really well, where we get introduced to our other two characters of the season, Hazel and Tuba, and they're both really nice. Hazel's just inherently likable, just little.
She's
like,
very innocent. There's
about
also a
everything.
nice mystery set up with her number not glowing, so that's like
they
set that well.
Oh my god, I was gonna say they set up the reveal of that she's not like someone who came onto the train really well. I'll mention it with like the next. I think it's in the episode after this. But this thing where Grace is asking her, "Oh, what were your parents like?" or all this
and
stuff,
she can't
she
say
doesn't
anything
answer.
because she doesn't.
And you think the idea is the implication you're meant to think is, oh, she thinks that because something bad happened to her. But it's like, oh no, she thinks that because she doesn't have any. That's the whole.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, oh, it's a really cool way to flip it around.
And that makes the dynamic with Tuba and her even better because Tuba lost her kids and Hazel doesn't have parents. They sort of both fit into that role for each other.
That's another great subversion of the usual animal sidekick formula. Because Atticus doesn't really have a lot to him. He's a very simple guy. Alan Dracula literally can't talk. And it's like, oh, nice funny little girl. What's he up to? Oh, her child's dead.
They utilize Tuba. Yeah. This first half I think is really good at setting stuff up in general. because, like you said, during the bit where Grace talks to Tuba and Hazel, they set up like her old dance school, which is important in episode 9, like in the flashback part.
Yeah,
They
it
just
is.
set up
Yeah.
through
Also,
simple
it sets
dialogue.
up Simon's racism, which is like a big
It sets up Simon's
One
this
thing I
season.
want to mention about Tuba, for some inexplicable reason, I don't know if it's just me, but I felt like when she was about to talk, I was going to start hearing Jack Black's voice, because for some reason I just thought that it would fit.
That is not the vocal range they went for at all. Maybe it's
Yeah,
like
exactly.
maybe it's because
know.
like Paul Kung Fu Panda like he
That's
plays big
probably has
animals like
something to
that.
do with it. Yeah, I don't know. I
Yeah,
just thought it would
I
fit
can
that.
see that.
But yeah, that was like
But
the first thing that came to mind when I saw her. But yeah, it's like a good establishment. The first 2 episodes. It's like we're only getting started with this. It's only it only goes down from here in a good way.
Yeah, I
Like
also just love that
know.
the whole jungle has this weird like
jungle
a
setting's
vibe to
cool,
it. All
yeah.
they play with the colors really nicely, which I like a lot. All these like purples and dark greens, really mystical stuff.
Yeah.
And I'd call episode 2 probably the weakest of season 3,
I
but
have to
they're all
agree,
really really good episodes. So
yeah.
yeah,
The bar
and
is set high here, and like most of these
yeah,
episodes are fucking phenomenal. So
definitely,
Yeah,
definitely.
they're really, really good at setting stuff up. Yeah.
Yeah, now episode 3. It's another one where it's like I just like the concept a lot. Got this weird ballroom where it's all like little otherworldly, but it all like fancy and stuff. I think it's really cool. And then there's some good like character stuff here. Like I mentioned when talking before, but that little bit with Grace and Hazel is really good.
nice,
And
yeah.
it's another thing where the whole thing doesn't feel right because it has a little like they do this in the other 2 seasons. This like little wholesome thing where it's like, oh, they're connecting, but there's this bit where Grace is like, oh, I think you might be able to join the Apex, Hazel, or something like that, and it's framed as a nice moment, but the Apex is the antithesis to the whole conceit of what Infinity Train is about. So
it's like very
really,
fake nice.
yeah.
Simon and Grace are trying to put on a front. Yeah,
they're essentially
and also
trying
there's a
to
dialogue
recruit
where
Hazel and at first they like don't even seem to care about it because in some way she's like just another part of the team and they just kind of like I don't know. In general, Grace and Simon have grown to become pretty egotistical because of their numbers, and they have and this like and Hazel's innocence is essentially like mainly affecting Grace. It's not affecting. It's barely affecting Simon, which trust me, we see more later. But it's like it's essentially like showing that maybe Grace isn't just an egotistical jerk.
Yeah. She has like those moments where they set up like her redemption. And also there's the bit where she says to Simon, like, oh, we need to get rid of the Null. They don't even refer to Tuba by his name, they just refer to him as the Null.
Yeah,
like they don't
because they
see
don't
him.
consider them like people. They just think they're basically they see them as there for their amusement, and in many ways, kind of like they were made just for them, which is kind of a fucked up thing to think about of how these people like consider these creatures that are made to help them. It's kind of depressing from a conceptual standpoint.
Yeah.
It's
And they said that up well in the season 2 episode as well, where they don't treat MT like a person, and now they're not treating any of the Knowles like people.
Yeah,
it's really
like they even like introduce they even like there's even like this idea where they wheel them where they basically throw them off the train and crush them
just like MT did to Agent Mace.
Yeah,
They
exactly.
use that as an execution method.
Oh wow, yeah, that's true. Damn.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, and also in the next episode, Le Chachelet Car, they set up why Simon thinks this really well because they reveal he has a past with the cat.
With the cat, whose name is revealed to be Samantha.
And, that's a really good one.
And also, so basically, it's revealed. Man, that moment where Simon starts talking to Hazel by that campfire, and then he says that the cat was his tuba. I was like, damn, that's kind of sad.
That's such a messed
You see, it's a good moment because you understand why he like subconsciously is against her because of that, but also it just like doesn't justify it. It just makes it like a little more interesting.
It just makes it makes it like sad how Simon takes one thing that happened and uses that to justify his entire worldview.
Yeah,
exactly. This one's another really good one in terms of atmosphere. It's like the kind of like the Toad car in season 2. It's this one where it's one location, and it's mostly just like restrained to talk about like the characters more. I love the whole because they're in this little cramped cabin, right? And get the wintry vibe because it's like completely snowed in outside, and then it's all just used for all that character stuff. And okay, I forgot I don't know his name, but the guy who plays Simon is really really good in this episode and the second half of the season. Like, off that,
he's
just
solid.
throughout the
like
entire series, frankly.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that you get this really
Yeah.
like I guess the perfect tone of voice for him where it's like he's like kind of just smug and dismissive, but also like he's like you get like the anger really well in the moments. I love
A
that
lot
part
of the
just
moments,
yelling.
where you're meant to hate Simon are done really well through the voice acting. Like
Mm,
the bit in
yeah.
at the end of the campfire call where he's talking all condescendingly to Hazel. It's like,
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah.
I hate him there.
Mm. I'll say the moment this one does another really good thing at showing Simon's whole thing because it's a big moment where because Simon yells at the cat and then he storms out and he says something like I have to spend all this time with the cat, and it's like you don't even care, and it's like they don't really draw that much attention to it, but subconsciously, it's kind of acting like a little bratty child, you know. He like storms off, complains that they're not
Yeah,
treating him right, and it shows that
Yeah.
Simon really has not evolved his worldview from when he was a young child, and that's like
and
a
that sets up that
it-
being the reason for why
yeah,
he is the way he is in that episode later
yeah,
on.
yeah, exactly. I
Simon is
picked up that I really
obsessed
like that
with
in the movie.
being
Yeah, yeah,
right and continuing and just he just refuses to admit his mistakes in certain cases. And it's like
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, it's one of his biggest character conflicts, but we'll
Yeah.
talk about it later.
yeah.
See, Simon's like Shadow. He always says, "I am always right. I
He
am
literally
never
that's
wrong."
literally a line of dialogue he gets. Why should I when
Yeah,
I'm always right? Yeah.
yeah. Mm. That
But
that dialogue is kind of silly, but also from the type of person Simon is, I
he
buy.
would
He would say
absolutely
'cause
say
it's
that,
totally
yeah.
just something like a young child would say.
Yeah.
It fits. He's like, literally not
But
evolved.
yeah.
Like,
Anyway,
kid.
Car is the last episode before a season just takes a complete shift.
A
Yeah,
Like
complete
the
shit. The
color
so
status
block.
quo changes.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's something.
Yeah.
I
This
also
one
like
is
honestly one last thing about episode 4. I just like that moment between Grace and Simon where Grace was realizing that her number is going down because she forms like a bond with Hazel, and like
Oh
that
yeah,
scene in
that's
episode
great.
3 allowed her to think more about her like past, which she's probably been running away from for a long time for
See, they're
I
very
don't
yeah.
know.
subtle with it with Grace's growth because in season 1 and season 2, you get like more obvious stuff with Jesse and Tulip growing, which it works there. But in this, you can't explicitly show Grace growing as much because she has to keep up that front, you know. But through the number thing, they show it going down subtly, showing that her mindset is changing. It's
Mm-hmm.
really neat stuff with that. And then the reverse
Yeah.
happens. Yeah,
They also do a good job like establishing like the differences between like Simon and Grace well because they both have that similar mindset, right, where they like have the same views on like nulls and all this stuff. But Grace is all more like outwardly like able to like hide that and able to form that connection. Where
yeah.
Simon, he doesn't really put up any fronts. He's very blatantly like, nah, let's get rid of him.
He's
And
blunt to a
here
point where
he
he doesn't show any empathy. It's
yeah.
very
This
yeah.
episode's when Simon does get rid of said monkey, and
Yeah.
oh
Oh my god.
dear.
So
Anyway,
this
Um,
this
one's really sad because
episode is
Simon, like,
essentially mocking the original Infinity Train concept. Like the
yeah,
first part is like teaching the lesson of working together, and basically it starts off with Simon and Tupa working together since they keep arguing, and basically it originally seems like oh they're growing a bond. Simon asks Tuba what happened to her daughter, and it's revealed that she died. It's never explained what happened to her, but I don't know. I don't know. Maybe there's like I don't know, but it doesn't really matter in the grand scheme
maybe
of
you can
things.
canonize it as the Apex killed her since they go
Yeah, I
around
thought
messing up
about that
cars.
as a theory actually, but
Hmm.
yeah, what's cool is that then this all builds up throughout the entire episode, and then just when you think that there's a chance that like Grace, Simon can start to like like let go of his like the life he's established and grow to become a better person, he completely shits on the message and fucking kills Tuba.
See,
Holy
it's such a
shit.
devastating moment, not just because he's killing her, but because before that, they try and build up them like, oh, they're getting along now, they're understanding each other more now. But then, nope, that moment just throws it completely out the wall. And I really like the build up to it. That's one of the best moments in the series, definitely. But there's really good build up where Hazel talks to Grace and is like, well, why is Tuba bad? Why can't we consider her? And Grace is just like, well, just because, not all Knowles. But then they were like, oh, she's one of the good Knowles, and they're trying to like internally justify that because Hazel's saying that Grace like can't like justify it actually with any actual reason. And then that
Yeah.
moment also sets up great Hazel being like the turtle thing really well because obviously she'd be upset hearing Grace like say, "Oh, Knowles don't matter,"
Not to mention,
when she
fucking
is. Yeah,
Simon admits that he killed Katuba. He does not
yeah,
give
that's
a
such a
shit.
depressing moment.
He
Yeah,
he is so he is so entitled to his beliefs to the point where he is admitting to it because he doesn't think it matters at all. He doesn't
and
care
then,
about Hazel. He just thinks he's another member of their clan. He's like firmly committed to this path that he set
Yeah,
out, and he's not
exactly.
going
It's
back
yeah,
like,
anytime soon.
oh my god, it's such a good thing because Hazel's just like, where's Tuba? He's like, nah, yeah, we got rid of him. She's fine. He
that's such
doesn't
a
like
sad moment.
say,
Oh my
but it's
god,
like,
yeah, so
it's this whole
sad.
thing where it really shows this like disconnect, how Simon's really disconnected from what other people think because he's just so like, yeah, no, you'll be fine, right? But then obviously Hazel doesn't because they've spent so much time establishing there is a connection there, and that
Yeah,
obviously she'd be upset by that. And then this leads to the ending of where we find out. I think it's this one where we find out. Oh no,
yeah.
great. Hazel's not a person. He's also one of the nulls, I guess. But I love that she transforms into like that turtle thing, and it's like,
See that
it's,
like that reveal really builds up the stakes well because at this point we're seeing how much Simon doesn't value the denizen. So then revealing that right that Hazel is a denizen builds up like, well shit, he just killed one of them because he didn't care about them. So if Simon finds out about Hazel, and then Grace says the line, "We just won't tell Simon," and then the way that comes back later is so.
yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Sandra, I was looking at the air dates for these, and I noticed they dropped the first 5 of season 3 all in one burst, and then you have to
oh
wait a
my
week
god,
for the second half. So
oh
that's
god,
kind of
wow,
like
I
a
left
week's
it
not
on
that
a
long, but like I can't imagine that being the end for a little bit.
yeah,
Jeez.
Jesus,
Damn.
yeah.
But the campfire car,
Is
Oh
moving
beautiful,
on to
god,
man.
that one.
That one is
That one
just
is
so
ooh,
miserable.
emotional.
what
It's the
a doozy
aftermath
there
of
is
what
there.
happened last time with Hazel
Yeah.
being a turtle, I guess, and it's
Yeah,
explained episodes later. We'll talk about that soon. And then basically, what it's so like sad seeing Hazel break down, being nervous that Simon's gonna fucking kill her too. It's like this is fucked up.
this
This
one
is
might be
so
the
messed
most
up, and she
hateable
is
Simon
forced.
gets because
Go on.
okay, because like Simon's literally dismissing the emotions of a child who just lost their guardian. Like he's like,
Exactly.
ah, we'll have the stupid funeral for the fake person.
I
Why do we need to
know.
waste
Oh,
time
I
on
fucking hate that line. It's at
And
the fake funeral for the fake.
it's
Oh my
so
god.
fucked
it?
up that Hazel is
She's
also
so
just
riled up. I want to
forced
punch that man.
Yeah,
to
But
travel with
oh my
like
god.
Simon
And
despite what he did. It's like it's fucked up.
I absolutely love the way they call back to the song that
Oh yeah, this
oh
little
yeah,
Hazel,
lullaby
the
that was shown in
lullaby
like
thing,
the other
and
episodes.
yeah. They
and
have it
you
like
just
in
Shown
have
brief
the
parts of
briefly.
those, and then they
yeah
have the full thing at the
that little
funeral,
bit
and
where
then
they're
just
just doing the thing, and it's like, oh my god, it's so sad.
And then
yeah,
The
seeing
whole
this
thing.
scene where Grace has been genuinely emotionally moved by like Hazel's lullaby over someone
yeah,
that she considered to be a null. It just goes to show like this is the start of her realization that like if a null is able to have that big of an impact on someone, then are they really a null? Like that is an
yeah,
interesting
exactly.
question to think
And
about.
at this point,
It's
Hazel is going to be able to be a null or or a denizen. But yeah,
yeah.
Yeah, and it's also
and then
like
okay,
Hazel
It's
is
a real whole
also
thing.
having that
You
impact
could
on
like yeah.
Grace.
Mhm. You can look into that whole like allegory there that I really like. The whole thing is like that's something you like you can apply to a lot of different things. How they're just essentially nulls are segregated because like, well, they don't have like this specific thing, or they are this specific thing. But yeah,
it's just
that thing's so cool. And then
dismissing an
oh my, I
entire
love
group.
the whole visuals of that. Like they're up on the trees and you see the sunset and
You have like
everything.
it's so like
Uh,
beautifully
so
planned.
so good.
Uh,
Yeah,
yeah.
fantastic,
And
fantastic.
then that ending bit where Simon and Hazel, like Simon's like, it's okay, we'll get you into the Apex. Tuba didn't matter. It's so like hateable in that moment.
I
Because Hazel's
know,
so
yeah.
innocent. You just you feel so bad.
Yeah, it's a very depressing show at this right now. Like
Yeah,
they have
this is
gone
probably
off
the
the
most
rails at
depressing
this
episode of
point.
it. Get off the rails train.
Yeah, it's very powerful episode in a lot of ways. It's one of like the most emotionally impactful, and it's like it also hurts that
Yeah,
Hazel, like we said, is trying to she has to like fucking cleanse her emotions. She has to keep them under control somehow and like avoid having outbursts and beating the everlasting
yeah,
shit out of Simon for what he did. So like
mm,
yeah, it's pretty
yeah.
fucking sad if I'm being honest.
It's
Uh
very very. And
anyways,
you like you think your like empathy for Hazel increases even more here because she's literally a child going through all of this, and then your hatred for Simon increases because of how much he dismisses that. And then you see Grace like grow to understand Hazel more. It's like such good development for all of them in this one. Ah,
yeah, it's
no, no,
bad, bruh.
yeah,
Anyways, I guess we'll get into the next episode,
the one with the
which
really long title, yeah.
yeah,
Uh,
this
so
one's
at the end
also
of
good.
yeah.
I like how this one is basically they continue traveling. They're now in another car,
Yeah,
and
and then me, Amelia.
Amelia, yes,
The
they meet Amelia in this
It's
one,
another
which
good
we haven't
example
seen
of
her
them
since
bringing.
season one.
Yeah, we haven't.
So yeah, and we've seen her like now now she's basically like investigating an anomaly issue of how there's like something that's ejecting cars automatically. So yeah, and now like at first Simon doesn't trust her, and no, it's Grace who doesn't trust her, and
Yeah,
like they're trying to like I don't know, she has like a high number, and they were thinking like who is this, like is this the conductor, because it's like the highest number they've ever seen. So
yeah. See, and they worship the conductor or the true conductor, what they see her as. So
that's what they
it's
call
an
her as.
interesting thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
and they have. I like the parts in this one where like Grace and Hazel talk, and Hazel's like, all worried about how Simon's going to react, and they have to like reassure each other further. That's a really good moment. Just like
Yeah.
at this point, it's so sad for both of them because Grace is having to come to terms with the fact that she has like the wrong beliefs about all this, while Simon is continuously getting worse with that. Like someone she's known for so long, but then she also has to protect like this innocent child who Simon would like kill if he found out based on what happened to Tuba.
Hmm.
It's really like really good dramatic stuff there.
Yeah, and it's like in this one we also see like a brief moment where Grace like just kind of has an outburst at Simon over like him having the audacity to ask her about the number, because nowadays like
Oh
she
yeah,
is genuinely starting to get mad at Simon and is like going away from her. Like she still clearly cares about him as like a friend, but like at the
yeah,
same time like she doesn't want to like tell her about her number shrinking anymore. She doesn't really want to talk about it. And she basically is just unsure what to do with this situation because she is
yeah,
being moved by Hazel's innocence and how that's like leading her to question her beliefs while Simon is actively against them and continues
yeah.
clinging
Exactly,
on to
exactly.
them. Um,
I like the bit where Simon goes to the cat in this to like try and further justify what he's thinking, and also he's going further down the pathway. He's literally looking into Grace's memories,
yeah.
like a very big invasion of her like privacy there. And I like the fact that he's talking to the cat here because you get some interesting context on their past about how, like, further looking into the fact that the cat abandoned him. I find it quite interesting that he goes to the cat in this, even though he looks down on like denizens because of the cat. Yeah, he's still taking advice from a denizen, which he would consider like beneath him. I find that interesting.
Yeah,
He,
he's kind of
he
hypocrite, but like at the same
yeah,
time, like
definitely,
where
definitely,
else
yeah,
is he supposed to turn to? It feels like Simon, like over time, he starts to like question his beliefs a bit more, and they
yeah,
like
mm,
contradict them, but he doesn't care, but he clings to them so much because
yeah,
it's revealed like kind of why he does. Like, and a part of that might be because of how he was abandoned by the cat, leading him like
yeah,
alone in some way, and it does lead him to like cling to things a bit more,
yeah.
especially since
I,
like spoilers, but he's been on that train for ages as well,
yeah,
which is
that's another
revealed in
neat
like
thing.
same with
Yeah,
Grace. So like they have
like this is all
raised
they've known for a lot of
themselves
their
in
life.
with different
So
mindsets.
yeah, it's like
So
it's like neat in contrast because characters like Tulip and Jesse are just discovering the train, but Grace and Simon have been on this like since they were children, so that's just all they're used to really. So it's neat seeing first of all Grace like question like the beliefs she had because of the train, and Simon fall further deep down that path. I like how they do it in previous episodes where they have Simon and Grace explain stuff to Hazel, but it's like the complete opposite of what you know about the train in previous episodes. They're like, oh, Hazel, you need to get your number up. Oh, Hazel, you need to take advantage of people on the train instead of learning stuff in the cars. It's like, I think that they own the place essentially. It's neat.
yeah, it's a great, pretty damn great episode.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. I like, okay, another line that I like in this is where Simon calls the cat Samantha, and that kind of shows like how much of a connection they had because no one knows the cat's name; they just call her the cat. But since Simon did, that shows that there was like a big connection there, which kind of proves like the fact, oh, Simon doesn't think he can trust denizens because of
yeah,
that experience. He literally says to Hazel, "Oh, you can't trust denizens," when she's talking about her bond with Tuba. So yeah, that makes that even more interesting, I think.
yeah.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, I don't think I have much else to say about this episode.
yeah, it's solid, another solid, really solid one.
Hmm. If you guys are wondering, I'll just say this right here. Brian's like gone for a bit, so I
Yeah,
guess we'll
he's
just.
kind.
I was gonna
I'm
like, I
waiting.
don't know. I just feel like it's weird if we just like continue without addressing it because I'm gonna. You're probably wondering why he did not talk like a little during this episode segment, but
We'll
like, yeah, he's. I don't know. He'll be back,
we'll
and
wait for him to come back for the last two
for the
at least
last
because
two
those are really
episodes,
yeah,
hopefully.
definitely,
He'll
definitely,
probably be back by then. If it not, we'll just
hopefully,
continue. And when he does come back, he'll just say his thoughts on it and whatnot.
yeah, yeah.
So that's like
we'll let him
worst
go
case
back to the
scenario though.
yeah,
Anyways,
yeah, yeah.
next episode is when we see the gang, like we see uh Grace and Hazel meet up with Amelia again, and this time around they're like both um this time, like, Amelia is also shown to be much more like socially awkward, showing that despite coming to a realization that she can't spend like her entire life attempting to replicating her old life with with her husband, it's like now kind of like she's shown to be more awkward around like Hazel and Grace. That's shown
Mm.
pretty well. So
I like the
then,
scene where her and Hazel talk, and that like Hazel's like, oh, they're both experiencing grief for someone. That's a nice moment where they connect on
yeah,
that.
there's also a lot of like great moments in this episode, and it's
Yeah,
like
definitely, definitely.
one of like the just one of the best ones, especially is like I love
Mm.
the scene where Simon just jumps out of like after talking to the cat, and then he just proceeds to try to like punch Amelia, and it's like,
Yeah, and she just has this force field around her.
yeah,
It's
this
pretty cool.
force field, and then she reveals to them that she was the original conductor, and it's
Oh, hello,
like,
you're
Oh
back.
my god, I
You're
love
back.
this whole thing because
yeah,
see Simon, his whole thing is that he's just stuck in these like stupid beliefs, and in this one, he's just like his whole thing is there's a false conductor. He keeps repeating this, clamoring this, and then he's like, oh
Yeah.
no, there isn't no false conductor. That is the real one. But because he can't grapple with the idea that he's wrong, he instead flips this to being like, well, you've lost your way. This is no way you're like how you used. It's like
yeah, he's
he
so
has to always
pathetic in
push it
that way.
to where oh my god, he is so fucking pathetic. He cannot admit wrongdoing in this situation at all, and it's so just like pathetic
Do you have
to see
anything to say
her.
on the one we spoke about before you left, the Canyon of the Golden
Which one
Scar?
was that?
It was the
The one
one
where
with the
the cat.
The
with
Yeah.
the can
the ca-
no, I I don't think that much. And if I assume you guys probably covered.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, we covered it.
Yeah, you came back just in time for this one, so yeah.
Yeah, because we're getting close
yeah,
to
no,
the
just,
finale.
yeah. But no,
Anyways,
the stuff with the Amelia is really, really cool that you said, because I like the fact that they're bringing her back here. Like, it's another cool loop around to the lore of the show. But now the stuff they get with her and Simon is really, really cool. Like how she just laughs off all of his stupid beliefs and he still doesn't believe it. So he's like, "Oh well, you're wrong. I'm the one who's right." It's very pathetic, like you said, but
he somehow just has a way that he can like shift it somehow, like because he's such a fucking pathetic bastard.
no matter how little sense he makes, he always wants to think he's right. He never wants to change.
Exactly.
yeah.
Like I said, just like entirely based on stuff he like hears one time, and he just goes from that. Like I said, he entirely distrusts denizens because of his bad experience with the cat. He entirely thinks old numbers going up is good because that's what he was like putting into the apex. And he's never willing to like have any of that change, unlike Grace. And it's such a cool contrast because you see Simon continuously get worse of this as Grace is learning to like let go of a lot of those like flawed things that she had installed into her. It's really neat stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then
it also the next one actually makes more sense when we get to the whole flashback sort of deal. Which you guys willing to move on to the
I still think I have some stuff to say, like the reveal that Hazel is one of Amelia's creations is a good
twist.
Then she goes off built
Amelia.
up.
Yeah.
And overall, just the moments in this, like in the car that repeats right after them when they have to like wait for the bridge to form, and and then there's also the scene where where just Grace just has like this outburst on Hazel saying that she'd do what she wants. She basically calls her a null, and she does it for the sake of
That's such a sad moment.
Yeah, it's a sad moment because she wants to also keep her relationship with Simon. So like, and she immediately regrets it, I guess. But she only did
feel
it
really
kind of
bad
to
for both of
please
them in that
Simon
moment
because she still
yeah.
considers Simon a friend at the end of the day, and like
Yeah,
she
and
knows that
she's
they
known him
both
for
have
so long.
similar mindsets. They've been through so much together. So like, it makes sense that she would still want to please him in some way, despite the stupid shit he does with literally just making excuses to justify his beliefs. Like when Amelia literally admits that she was the false conductor, the they basically just like he basically just says, well, he lost his way, like you said, Brian. So like,
Well, actually, such a
it becomes even sadder in the next one because you see like how much Simon and Grace have like they've literally been friends since they were kids. They built up the whole thing with Apex together, and they've like always gone by the values of like, oh, we numbers going up is good. We run the trade. We don't care about the denizens. So that's Grace getting that challenged and Simon refusing to creates like such a sad conflict because you can understand. Yeah. But you can understand why Grace does stuff like trying to betray Hazel because she's been with Simon for so long. But it's still so sad from like both of their perspectives because clearly Grace doesn't want that anymore. And clearly it's sad for Hazel because Grace was like the one form of trust that she still has. It's very sad. This one. Also, okay, that ending bit where Simon looks into Grace's memories and sees the "we just won't tell Simon" thing again from earlier. His expression at that is really, really good.
I guess we'll get into the final two episodes now. First off, the next one. It's the scene where like Hazel just screams to Grace saying that she's not going with her is genuinely just really sad, to be completely honest. And it's like it's just kind of like a sad point. You start to feel kind of bad for Grace. Like you can understand that like all the stuff she's going through are her fault, but you also know that she's like slowly starting to grow thanks to Hazel. And now that Hazel is leaving, she's just kind of supposed to squeeze back into the normal Apex system after she had a chance of even getting close to getting off this train. Even also last episode they like found out about the purpose of the train as well, but they still like kind of which like Grace thinks about it a bit, while Simon just doesn't give a shit because he's Simon. So yeah, it's like a great moment with and also just a scene where Simon just forces, forces like Grace to relive her memories. Like we see how she was like rich as a kid. She had a mansion, and her family was very wealthy, but that never really like
Yeah,
made her happy because she was never like listened to or by her
yeah.
parents and was always like forced to do things, and also like showed this level of like egotistical of how she like mocked some people in her past and
Yeah.
whatnot.
You see the bit with her mother where her mother's like, "Oh, just take her to a movie or something," clearly not showing any care for her in that moment.
Yeah, and it also like justifies
Yeah.
why Grace built this number mindset in the first place,
Yeah,
which she was able to project onto Simon, revealed in this
yeah.
episode. And
Because
we
really,
also
like,
Yeah.
instead of just having a problem to solve, like Tulip or Jesse, Grace was just unhappy with her situation in life in general. So her like
Mhm.
clinging to the train
Yeah.
is something that keeps her happy is really like interesting to have a different perspective on that.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
also
Also, it also sets up the Apex well in a way I really like this one. Not like obviously it literally shows them making it, but when you see Grace's whole thing, how she eventually does some of these like shitty things because she's so starved from attention. In regular life, you're like, it makes sense because that's literally what the Apex does, just
Yeah,
destroying shit and doing all that stuff for attention practically. So I think that's all like really
yeah,
really cool
yeah,
stuff.
mm,
But yeah, the scene where like Grace and Simon like meet and Grace explains the number thing, it's so tragic because really there isn't like a clear like source for why any of this happened. It's kind of a combination of things. You don't really feel bad for like you feel bad for a lot of people because you could be like, oh, the cat was bad for abandoning Simon, and I mean, yeah, but also like, what the fuck was she gonna do? Like, she
she
like
said
probably
that
got
she
too
says
caught
in
up
the
in being.
previous episode that she didn't know that she did that. Like she ran off and thought he
Yeah,
was
exactly.
fine.
She's
yeah, it
like,
was just her
she's probably
instincts.
like a cat. She probably got so caught up in the moment that like she left. That's not
Yeah,
entirely like her fault. And then you could be like, you
yeah.
could blame Grace for the one like coming up with that like system. But in fairness, Grace is not like she's just a child. She should not be the one who's entrusting another child to have their own
Exactly.
like
Yeah,
worldview
I
or
think
exactly.
in
whatever.
And
this
even though
case,
And
I think in like this case,
mm,
Simon. So basically, the two things that built Simon was the cat abandoning him,
yeah,
and the thing that Grace said about how her number got up because of her like her strength and whatnot. But at the same time, like sure,
mhm.
it's like in this case, Grace and the cat abandoning him. It allowed Simon to cling on to this ideology about thinking that the numbers or like these like are used as a way of strength and showing like um just showing your power, the power they have and whatnot. And it's
mm,
like it's what built Simon in the first place, but then again it's not their fault that Simon interpreted things this way. It's his own fault, which is revealed and shown more in the final confrontation in the finale that takes place after this episode.
yeah. The ending of this one is like really, really haunting. Where Simon, like Grace, is like, "Why are you doing this? Why do you have to remind me of all of this?" And then Simon's like, "Oh, I've lost." Simon explains, not explains, but shows that how much he's lost trust in her through showing that, "Oh, we just won't tell Simon clip over and over." And then you have that
Mm.
visual of her being taken in by the static, while he's taken in by the numbers, showing like how much
Yeah.
worse
Oh my
he's.
god.
That's such a terrifying visual. Also, okay,
I love that where
the
it's like
cool.
he's playing on like literally every corner, and like the whole thing is Grace kind of just runs from her problems, which is a common thing on the show. But now she literally can't because it's like
It's
everywhere
all
she
around her.
looks. It's
Yeah.
all that.
There's a cool
Yeah.
thing on where you see the cartoon at the end, as you see the Cartoon Network logo, and you see Grace's hand covered in static, and then Simon's hand covered in numbers. I think that's cool. It like shows at this point Grace is being consumed by her guilt, and at this point Simon's being consumed by like
Mhm.
his ego. That's really really cool. I think the cool like visual contrast to show like what they've gone through.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Yeah, and
Uh,
I guess we'll move on to the finale, which is very fucking powerful when we
yeah,
see
very very.
Simon's number just growing even more. Like first it opens with a visual of Grace ripping out the tape thing, which is a very haunting visual.
Yeah, and her being like psychologically
Mhm.
tormented with like visions of Hazel.
Oh
Oh wait,
yeah,
that's
it's
another thing
so
in the last one.
sad.
I like the conclusion they come to with Hazel, because even though it's not like a happy ending, her going off with Amelia is ultimately like better than her being alone or with Simon and Grace. So, she kind of gets off. She gets off better than she would have if she were with Simon and Grace. So I like that part, and it's really sad for Grace as well. But yeah, the new effects. Yeah, the opening in this one with Grace like being put through psychological torment is really good, and her getting over that and telling herself, Grace, like she's made a lot of mistakes, but she still needs to go back and help the people she cares about. It's really really good.
And then
yes, great visuals.
And then you see Simon's
the visuals in this one are kind of terrifying. This whole thing where so Grace gets back, and then the whole thing is by this point Simon is like the most far gone he's been by this point, where he's like he convinced all the Apex people to be like, oh now Grace has betrayed us. We gotta wheel her out and all that stuff. The Apex like yeah exactly the Apex like car already has this like weird feel to it, because like they've all like fucked it up and shit. But even more so now because of like the lighting, and Simon's got this like cloak and shit. Hair's no longer tied back, so he just looks unhinged.
The frickin'
this whole
thing
where he's
growing,
like,
that's like a haunting visual, like I said back in season one, in the season 1 segment. It's like
exactly. And
it's
then oh my god, I love the whole thing where they they have this fight on the connecting car between the trains, which I think is a cool visual, because on the other ones, all the other series finales, they have their big like end battle inside of a car, where this one is like in between them mostly. I think that's a cool little distinct thing.
So it makes it like intense, because like there's rails and like everything around them.
And like from season 2 that like, and this season that like, you're like fucked if you fall off the train essentially, because we know what happened to Agent and Cuba. But god, the back and forth in this is so good. And then eventually, because like the Apex people don't know who to trust, because obviously they like Grace and they like Simon. And then
they're kids as well, so
when
they're easy to be manipulated.
Exactly.
And then just the Simon eventually, he's so overloaded by all this. Numbers come up to his face, but he's just so far gone from this point. And then okay, see, I think first viewing it, I knew he was gonna die. Right, I assumed that he was like, they're gonna have him land on the wheel, like because he did that to two, but maybe it's like a reflective thing. No, he just kind of like decomposes. Which I think is worse than like anything that could be implied. It's just like, what the hell, man? So weird, crazy.
And
there's just that whole thing where he's like laughing with the lightning in the background.
That's like
I like the touch of the I like the touch of the lighting, because in the moment the lightning where he kills in the scene where he kills Tuba, there's lightning in the background, and then as he's just killed or almost killed Grace, you have the same lightning. So it's like showing that is the cue for Simon doing something completely evil. Which okay, another thing I really like is in the origami car, you have the bit where Grace steps over like the origami cranes, showing she cares about them. But Simon goes out of his way to step on them, and then at the start of the new Apex, you see her unfold them, like trying to fix them.
Yeah, I love that.
And then when Simon pushes Grace off of it after like Grace saves him first of all, and he's still trying to kill her. That's very messed up. But then after that, the origami are what helps her. So it's showing that Grace's new caring nature and actually putting time into helping people is ultimately what saves her. And then after that, Simon is killed by And after that, Simon is killed by what the initial thing that was attacking him when the cat ran away and when he first met Grace. I think that's a cool, ironic thing you can think of, because now he doesn't have Grace on his side. He's killed by that same creature. I think that's cool.
Yeah, there's I noticed that detail. Also, I've gotten some of this stuff, like some of this cool little detail stuff when searching into the show from this great video
there's
by
a lot,
like
you said, there's a lot to think about.
I recommend checking that out. I'll put it in the description.
Okay.
But anyways, back to that. It's just such an amazing conclusion. I also like how this it's just like the Grace doesn't even end with Grace getting off the train, because that would just be unrealistic. No. So like it just ending like with Grace trying to not create another Simon in some way, but at the same time, it's not like Grace definitely helped build Simon, but it's not his, it's not it's she realizes that it wasn't just her fault that Simon is the way he is. It is the way he took what Grace said. It's his fault that he went down his path, and he ends up
See, it's
letting
so
this
tragic
consume
because
him to the point where he dies. And
she technically started the Apex and had that whole ideology. It's just that Simon, since he takes everything and refuses to change, that he's the reason he went that far with it and wouldn't listen to anything else but himself. And that's why he says, "Why should I listen when I'm always right?" He just believes everything he believes is right, and that led him down this awful path. It's very, very tragic.
Exactly.
Like, yeah. And then I love that visual in the ending of all of the kids as numbers going down, and then you see Grace like smile while the glows of the numbers, like from the numbers going down, and then you also see again the origami crane that she helped earlier come back. Like that's just a really good like visual thing to indicate that they're changing and growing still in the ending.
It's a great
really,
ending, despite being pretty damn sad.
See, now I just know that's what's so good about it, though. I love that like it doesn't really end truly happy for anyone. Grace gets the best end of the stick, I guess, because they get to like have this chance to improve. It's sort of bittersweet in that chance, but also even though Simon was awful, she was clearly close to him, and then she watches it compose in front of her eyes. The Apex have to like deal with their entire worldview being like flipped. They don't even know what to do anymore. Tuba's gone, obviously. That was like a while ago. And Hazel, I love that Grace doesn't really get to make it up to her. There's no like forced thing where like, oh, she's fine. Hazel probably has it better where she is, like a distance from them. But even still, it's like she has all this like trauma from all of this stuff. So no one really ends happy in this season, and that's why I'd say I prefer season 2 just personally to watch. But as an like an experience, season 3 just takes the cake. It's like, oh boy, what the?
Yeah, it's such a.
I have a few more notes on it, just like some other stuff. I like the line that the cat has in Golden of the Winged Snake's car, where she says her number isn't broken. You just don't like where it's going. That's a neat thing because it's like Simon views Grace's new worldview as bad, but really he just doesn't like it himself. He doesn't like the fact that her number's going down and she's getting better. There's nothing, and he proposes to the cat, "Oh, Grace's number's broken," but no, she's just actually getting better while he can't, and that's why his number's
doing what it should do.
Yeah, exactly, and his is not doing that. His is going completely backwards, which is why that end visual of it completely covering him is so haunting because he's like completely far gone, and they show that through the numbers. It's really, really cool.
So good.
I think that's everything I have on my notes. Though I wrote a lot of notes for this season, a lot.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah, there's a lot to talk and think about with it. Such a good season.
All right. I guess we'll get to the ratings. I guess we all do the 10 out of 10, right?
Definitely.
Yeah, we're all in agreement on that.
Yeah,
one of the best
such a fucking good season.
Good stuff.
Holy
top
shit!
To bottom.
Honestly, even next season isn't as good, like we said, but like we kind of said before. But like this, I'd prefer if this was the ending to it. If it was going to be cut, because this would have been an amazing way to end it.
It's very, very.
Yeah, but
so
anyways,
low key, I would give the show like a 10 overall low key if it were just these first 3 seasons, but it doesn't take away anything. But season 4 is
book 4 Duet is
my least favorite pretty good thing of all time.
That's
my best way to put it.
It's not bad. It's far from bad. There isn't even anything that terrible about this season, to be completely honest. It's just not as good in terms of its.
See, the thing with season 4 is I think we're all in agreement on this. It's worse what it doesn't do rather than what it does, I guess.
Because what it does do,
there are things I do appreciate about this season. I like the idea that it's 2 people going on the train who knew each other before the train and not just in a random assortment. I like that. But also, it's just like a lot of... Okay, I'll be fair. I can understand why. Season 3 goes so hard on this dark and twisted and this flip of the formula that it's kind of hard to go further than that. But even so, it just kind of feels like it's like okay, it's like very feels much more standard kid stuff and a lot of like well, a lot of what I really liked about Infinity Train, the edge and especially the creativity, I feel like is way lower in this one, and that's just
Yeah.
kind of why I don't fuck with this one as much because I rewatched the first 3 seasons for this video before. I was like, I could just do like little clips and
I
stuff just to
watched
get
I
a
watched
general
like
idea.
I watched the first episode, which I think the first episode is really, really good at setting stuff up. I like the framing device they have with that, where they have two different like sides of the tape and they show how their lives
Yeah, that
went
was a
apart and how
cool
they
way
came back.
of showing that. That's why it's
Yeah.
called the twin tapes.
But
So
also, unfortunately, the season just kind of peaks at this first episode,
yeah,
which is
so
still really good.
Yeah.
But
it
yeah,
follows Ryan and Mingy, two completely different passengers who are unrelated to the events of the last season, I
yeah,
guess.
it's like
So
it's
it
pretty much like
follows
a reset.
them. They're on the
Yeah,
train now, and they both have like numbers that tie to one another. And now they got to work through the different. It's a typical Infinity Train thing, except these two guys both have like the same number, and it's pretty simple in its emotional thing. And I think though I do enjoy Ryan and Mingy as
yeah,
characters.
I
I
like them a
just
lot.
don't like
They're
I
solid,
think
yeah.
their like relationship is well handled. They have a pretty simple friendship with Ryan wanting to be like a famous wanting to be a part of a band with Mingy, but Mingy
Yeah,
having like different like just having a different desire, despite him to to like play with him,
yeah,
and it's like a
Yeah, it's
it's a good
alright.
emotional conflict, I'd say, like how me believes that like Ryan was like always kind of like pressuring him into parts of the band with him like being kind of scared to perform and whatnot, and it's a good
See,
emotional conflict,
see, the
but
thing is, I think that that stuff is good. It's just not like it's not first of all, it's not as good as the conflict of the first three seasons, but also it's the main highlight of the show, but it really doesn't need the train stuff. I feel like that's a big problem here. It's like
yeah.
the main conflict works, it's just not as much in relation to the other stuff on the train. Like a lot of the cars just kinda there for them to have
It's
conversations rather
like
than
Yeah, it's kind of
I
the
don't know.
cars are
I feel like the
probably my
actual
biggest issue with this season. They're just not that
yeah, that's my main
creative.
thing. The creativity is like okay. With I'll go back to season one. I think it's unfair comparing two and three because they're so much like bigger. But even like even season one, which I don't think is as good as two and three, there's also a lot of creativity in the cars. There's like
yeah,
the
yeah,
crystal car one that we really liked.
Yeah.
There's like the beach one even though it's kind of simple, they get a lot out of that. The unfinished one and the ball pit
yeah,
that like even though those are
yeah,
simple, they're used for really cool stuff there.
yeah, they are.
Whereas season four has much more general themes like iceberg, the old
Old West.
west.
And
There's like a
then
party, there's like an art guy. It's like
A pig
it's
infant
not
voiced by
bad, but it
J.K.
just feels
Simmons.
so much more standard. And I don't. Oh, the pig
and then there's
episode. Oh,
the pit.
I
That one
hate that one. It's
sucks.
so
Yeah,
bad. I
So
it's
hate it.
annoying.
it's
It's
just
so
so
stupid,
lame.
and it makes me so mad because it's not even that terrible, but compared to the rest of the
There's
show, it's
nothing
like what the
that bad
fuck
about
happened?
it, to be
And
honest,
it's
but
like
like
it's just like such a lame thing. It feels very random equals funny. Like, oh,
Yeah,
there's a
there's a
pig
pig
that's also a
infant.
he's
baby, and
for some reason
we
he's
gotta
voiced
cook
by
for
J.K.
it.
Simmons.
Whoa.
I
He's
don't
voiced by
know
why
Yeah,
why.
I
J.K.
don't.
Simmons of all people.
I
He
don't
could have
know.
played. They could have had him play a fun Infinity Train character. I don't get why he's
Yeah, that would have been so cool.
He's a
But oh well,
there.
baby.
it's like
And then they
haha,
have to like
and
take
it makes me
preparing a
annoyed because I
meal for
remember,
him. And
yeah,
and basically
and I
they
remember near
learn.
the, yeah. Yeah, no, they spell out the lesson right at the end because I remember it pisses me off. They literally state it, which I hate so much because Infinity Train is great at show don't tell, and this
Yeah,
tells you the message right away. It's like that's not how this fucking show works. It
Yeah.
made me
yeah,
really mad. But
Yeah, and
yeah,
eh,
apparently the number goes down because they literally say it, like you said. Basically, it's because I don't know. It's because Ryan learned to like take it easy and like take his time, I guess. And I do like how there's a conflict with how Mingy becomes more egotistical and like I'm more annoyed at Ryan because he starts to make the assumption that they're on the train for his mistakes, but it's like I don't know.
yeah,
It's like in general, the whole pig baby thing it's just lame in turn. Why did they need to
Yeah,
teach this lesson in this way though? Like,
I
why
don't know.
is this the best the writers could think of?
See, that's the thing. I think that there's a lot of interesting moments with Ryan and Mingy, like you said, and like the scenes are just them talking about how they went different paths in life, but they still consider each other best friends. I think that stuff's interesting and neat, but
Hmm.
also, like I said, it doesn't require the Infinity Train format. Like the
Exactly.
party car, I think that episode has a really good ending to it where they just talk about like what they could do with a band,
Yeah, it's
but also
nice.
that also doesn't require them being in the party car. The only episode that really utilizes
Exactly.
the only episode that really
Mm.
utilizes the Infinity Train format is the Astro Q car where they're trying to work out a problem within the train. But I don't
Yeah.
know, even then it's not as cool as like other seasons that
Yeah, then
utilize
we
the
see
car stuff.
Ryan and
And
Mingy
the,
have this
the actual
argument and
cars just
whatnot.
aren't that interesting. I don't know.
I like the idea though that Minky is using the number as a way to kind of let out his like anger
Yeah.
towards Ryan in certain ways.
Yeah.
Um, so like that's something I think is kind of interesting with the characters. But
Yeah.
yeah, and in terms of other concepts, I like one of the main denizens here is Kez, a talking bell.
Yeah.
And I like how Kez is more of like I mean I know it kind of goes against the train's premise, but like I don't mind the idea that this denizen is more of like a foil to the main characters. I think that can lead to like
See,
I don't know.
I don't know. I
It's
think
something
Kez is
different,
like
I guess.
charming enough. I just don't really like in the last
Yeah.
two episodes where they try and bring Kez into the conflict. Because, like I said, the stuff with Ryan and Mingy, I think is solid enough that it can pretty much carry the season
Yeah.
since the rest of the stuff is not as good at all. But like when they bring Kez into it, it's like well, I don't really care that much about this conflict where the house like steals passengers on the train and how that's what they're using Ryan and Mingy for. It's like I don't. Yeah, I don't know. I just
I'm
think it's a bit
I don't know.
unnecessary to go.
That's fair. I do
I mean, I'm gonna be
like
honest.
one thing about the
The
castle
main
thing
reason.
though, and it's like I like the idea that the reason that the guy got off the train was because of this conversation that Kez had with him
Yeah,
with
no, I
him.
like
I
that.
think that's
I
like a
like that.
good idea that Kez, despite like being a foil to the main passengers of this season, that she was still able to fulfill a purpose in helping one.
Yeah.
I like that. I like that scene.
Yeah, that's another thing I like. Okay, one thing I
Mm.
thought I had a problem with in this season is that it doesn't really expand like the world enough. But no, it kind of does since it's set before the other seasons. You get neat stuff like you see One and Amelia working together on the train. You see that the train passengers used to have uniforms. I think stuff like that, like seeing a
Mm.
beta version of the train, I think is pretty cool. It's just
See,
this
stuff
show
like that,
doesn't.
I kind of think about because like you think if this was like the first season, you don't have to change that. Like if this was the first one, I think people would be like much more receptive of it because I think it's
Yeah,
part of why I'm always so negative towards it because it comes after 3 and
yeah, it's
2.
such a
So I
high
don't know,
bar
maybe
to
just that
cross.
The bar has
And
been
also the fact
set
that
exactly,
so high.
it's the last season, and like
exactly,
this is the show ended on a note that is way weaker than the rest of it is somewhat unsatisfying.
exactly. Just,
Because like
Yeah.
I said, it works its own thing. It's just the fact that it has this connective tissue with the rest of the show that makes it more frustrating. It's just nowhere near as good, even though it's still solid
yeah.
for what it is.
Mm. And
I
it's
don't
something
know.
like fine, like I don't know, like you said, the main two I think are like fine enough because there's some good stuff there. Kez is a companion. Admittedly I probably only like her because I realize she has the same voice
Yeah,
actress as Eileen on
Eileen.
regular show, and I find that
Yeah,
funny.
Mm.
But it's
yeah.
like uh, it's like I don't know. She's like all right for most of it. She's no Ala Dracula or any of the other guys, but
Not too
all right
bad.
It's all just
comparatively.
kind of
And I don't know.
fine, to be honest. There's just nothing like
Yeah, yeah,
exceptional about it, you know? I like most
The
of the
only
yeah.
thing
episodes of
the
this
only thing I
season,
think is
but like
exceptional is the very first episode, and then it's just like pretty good to okay for
I
the
Yeah,
rest
like
but
of
the
it.
that's the thing.
first
All
and
these,
last episode the most,
I like the
probably.
yeah.
last one, yeah.
I like
I know
the
the only part I don't
Um,
like in the last one is where they try and do a weird thing when they bring in all of the other like
yeah, they
characters
do
that
that in the
show up in the
last three
cars.
episodes, yeah.
I'm not really a fan of that. It feels weird. Like every episode should be about the car, not all of the stuff in the car coming back. Like if
Yeah.
they have something with a
yeah,
car,
it's just kind of jarring personally. I don't
yeah,
know. I'm not into
Uh,
that.
yeah.
I like
Uh,
how I just like the moment at the end where like Ryan and Mingy are just able to like just continue to play and then it
I
ends up
like
opening
that's something I really
their
like. It's really
exits.
I think the ending, like the end scene, is really satisfying for this season. Like they sing the Train to Nowhere song and it's nice, and the
Yeah, it's a
lyrics
good
like
song. I
reflect.
like
Yeah, it's
that.
a good
It's
song.
really it's satisfying as an ending to this season, but as an ending to the whole show,
Yeah.
It doesn't
I
really.
don't know.
You'd rather they do something else, really, but it works enough.
Yeah.
It's nice.
I like how I don't know. I think there's something because in the art gallery episode, I kind of like the concept of it. It isn't like an amazing episode or anything, but I do like how it ends with
I
Ryan
like
getting
it.
his
Yeah.
exit, but like how like he just doesn't take it because like
He
he
doesn't take
came.
it because he wants to go back to Minji.
I
Yeah.
think that's like
I
a
like that because it
cool
reminds me of the
thing.
thing with Tulip and sort of Jesse in season 2,
Yeah,
where they
that's
get their
yeah.
exit, but they still want to go back to hell.
Yeah.
That's a neat thing.
Well, see,
But
I get that, but also it just reminds me of how the other seasons do that, like, better. Which, again, I know that's
yeah,
unfair, but it's kind of like
that's a
I
lot
think
of
it's
this
a fair
season.
comparison to like
Yeah,
make because
that's a lot of
it's
this
like
season. It's
hard
like,
to
uh,
yeah. I try to look at this season on its own, like, because I feel bad criticizing it for just being like fine, but also I don't think it's possible really to separate it from those expectations. And like we said, we have had like there are things to compliment about it. It just comparatively, none of the emotions for me really ring as strong as it does
yeah,
in like
definitely not.
Yeah.
seasons 2 and 3 and 1. So I don't know.
The
I think that's
Mindy and
just the
Ryan
Entirely, it
synopsis on
feels like
this
a
conflict
season.
is like good and I think is executed well, but I just don't think it's anything like amazingly compelling
That's the
or
thing.
anything.
That's like always what I come back to of the season. It's good, but not as good, so it's frustrating.
Yeah, I do
Exactly.
kind of
Yeah,
like this season. I think
I
separating
do.
it
I
from
do
the
like
rest
it.
of the
But,
show,
Eh.
it's pretty good. I think it does. I think it
yeah,
executes on what it does well. If I like the characters decently enough, but it's just not. It's just like it feels like when we're at the fourth season, there's just not a lot of like big expansion on the Infinity Train
yeah,
formula besides having two
no,
passengers and I don't know. There's like
And
some
like,
ideas I like,
yeah.
but
See,
yeah.
I'll be fair to that in that respect because like I was talking about how I like how 2 builds off of 1 with the MT thing, 3 builds off of 2 with Simon and Grace. Season 3 doesn't really have anything you can like leave open to do that with a fourth season. So it makes sense why they don't do anything like that. But I don't know.
yeah,
It just makes it feel kind of more lame how it's like more disconnected, except for like I don't
yeah.
know characters that always appear like the cat
Cat and
like,
Randall.
Yeah,
Randall.
I don't know. They
Yeah,
don't even really have much of a
yeah.
need to be in this season because they
Yeah,
don't
no,
really
the
like
cat kind
it.
of randomly shows up.
Mhm,
Yeah.
Yeah, the cat. Also, I find it incredibly weird
mhm.
in that same episode. There was a scene that repeats after that where Kez calls the cat hot, and I'm all like, "Hold up,
Xander?
Xander?
bruh."
Who said
Xander
that?
said that. Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh, it's
Mhm.
I don't know. It was weird, but
Yeah.
it's all just fine. Would you notice we haven't been going episode by episode because there's just not much to say about them
I know there's not a
individually.
lot to say of the simple because conflict-wise, they're much more simple. It's like, oh, I got a thing, they gotta do that, and there's that.
There's not
And
much to
I
really
think,
analyze or break down
yeah,
about the season, which why you might
yeah, there's
notice
not
that
Nah.
this
much
segment is
character
much
to them
shorter
comparatively. I noticed,
than the
which,
segments for the other episodes
See,
since yeah,
on
it's
this
just kind
season,
of
I
a
think
yeah,
step
like,
down.
season 1 to 3 leave you with a lot to think about, especially season 2 and 3. You're left with like so much to dissect, and that's why we had so much to say about those. But this just kind of boils
exactly.
down to, oh yeah, that's nice. They got back together and made their band. They worked out their conflict,
Good
but
for
Yeah,
it's not something that's gonna like overly impact you.
yeah.
It's just like simple,
yeah.
nice stuff. I don't know.
Uh-huh. Like oh,
Hmm.
fucking the
Yeah,
cars, like we said, I don't know, there's like the one iceberg thing where they have this thing that could like change the time period. And when I
oh yeah,
rewatched that episode, one thing I noticed is like I find it weird how they just like didn't immediately put it in the middle because I feel like that would just be the obvious thing to put it in, you know?
yeah.
If you look at it, I don't
Uh,
know, that's like kind of a
Also,
nitpick though.
I like the art gallery episode, but also it kind of partially bothers me how they try and do like darker stuff, and it works there. Also, the thing with the show's darker stuff in the previous episodes is that it never worked just because it was dark. It worked because it was in service of really good character stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yeah,
the cat's car goes to like dark places with the visuals, but that's because it's servicing a story about Tulip learning to adjust to the change
exactly.
and accept it.
Yeah.
But this is just kind of
And
oh
plus, even like comparatively, it's like not even that much. And like I don't know. Like
yeah
I was talking about like I was talking about before, like Infinity Train never did the dark stuff just because it was like, just because it could, it was all for a purpose.
Exactly.
Which is why I hate when channels like, how did it get that dark? Like, yeah, because it made sense, dumbass.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I don't even think I have much more on season 4. It's like fine.
I guess I'll say some more.
It's okay.
Some more stuff in general. Just like, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I just didn't care about most of these car concepts, like the fucking mosquito West thing. Nah, there's nothing overly creative or memorable about a lot of it. And also, there's just not even a lot of cars now that I think about it, because they spend more than one episode on some of them. So like,
they send
like the last
I don't
3
know. My
episodes
synopsis
all
is
focus
just
on the same car.
it has good, like my synopsis is just it has pretty good main character stuff. It's just not in service to what usually makes Infinity Train really good.
Yeah, the
So,
finale.
that's the
The
best way
only
to
the
put it,
episodes I
really.
really
Yeah.
love are the finale and like finale and the first episodes, only because I like to see the beginning and conclusion to Ryan and Minky's relationship.
Yeah,
Because I like
it's
it.
satisfying
They're
stuff
good,
on
thick
those.
characters.
Yeah,
It's a very simple arc, but I think it works. But I don't know.
it
I just
does.
feel
It
like
does.
even though season one also had a simple arc, it was just executed using
Much
better
better, yeah.
cars, better concepts, and it was just betterly written in a more interesting
Yeah.
way compared to season
Yeah.
4.
Yeah.
Um,
I think that's about it on this.
yeah, I know that. I know we had much less to say about this season compared to the other ones, but I swear, you watch the season, there's not much to say about it.
That kind of
I
summarizes
know, we
the
said a
season.
lot about the other ones. It's fine.
Yeah, because there's so much to dissect in certain episode scenes. So like, yeah,
Yeah,
this one just
exactly.
doesn't have that much, and it's kind of like the only big issue I have. It's just kind of okay to kind of good. It's like that's the range for me, you know.
I think it's pretty good, but also only is like not in relation to the other seasons.
Yeah, that's fair.
Mm.
Yeah, I don't know. I wish I could say more, but genuinely just don't have much to say. It's all just like, it's
Yeah.
all just fine, I guess. I
Solid.
don't know.
It's alright.
There's some decent ideas with the main two characters and some of the cast stuff, but it's not like executed in an overly interesting way. And I think we can get to our ratings for this one, and then maybe we'll talk about what
I go
happens with the
6.
show.
It's like a 6 without heart. It's like fine for me. I don't know.
I'm gonna.
They're good stuff, but it just kind of makes me frustrated overall, especially considering what I think should have been the 4th season and what they planned for a 5th. Which
that would have been
they're gonna
so
do a
cool.
whole like Amelia thing about the creation of the train. I thought that would be so
That would have been
cool.
amazing.
Because we know some
like,
stuff about Amelia already, but like we could see more like how she took over the train and like how this process continued and how like we could basically see like an like an awful passenger journey with someone like instead of working through their problems, just like moving backwards, you know? Like I guess kind of similar to what happened with Simon, but like the entire focus, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But anyways,
Just adding more to the world of it.
Yeah,
Cool.
it would have expanded it better. And
yeah.
and as for my rating, it's like I kept torning between a 6 and 7, but I think it's like a high 6 or low 7 range. I'm unsure right now. I have it at like I had it at a 7 before, but another thing about it might just be a 6. But that's my range for it.
I go with like I think it's like a solid 7 for me, but not one I'm like overly into. Because like I said, I think that the main character stuff is like really good. Like there's a lot of really good moments of that I like a lot. But then there's just a lot that frustrates me about it. So even if it's solid, I don't think it's nearly as good as the other seasons.
Yeah,
like 7.
Definitely.
Yeah. Yep. That's Infinity Train. It's a pretty damn great show. I
What a show.
It's sad what really happened to this one. Yeah. So for those who don't know, it was removed off HBO Max. There was like a lot of plans. There were like a total of 8 seasons, and most of the crew was like laid off, and the show was not being renewed for season 5. And I think there was also, like we said, a movie plan that would be focusing on Amelia's journey and taking over the train, which is a very good concept. So much potential in that way. It's such a shame that the show never like there's so much potential, and we only got like half of the total seasons that were planned, which sucks.
I hope and pray that one day the show will like get picked up and we get a lot of the stuff that they have planned because that'll be really, really cool.
Apparently,
because
literally the show
that
was
concept
canceled
is just
because it was
so
too
good that
dark.
there could be
Like, come on, bro.
Yeah.
That's stupid.
The concepts are so good they could do so much more of it, but it's like, oh.
Yeah.
Oh well.
I hope if this
Tragic,
show
truly.
does come back, I hope they don't pussy out with the dark elements because that was the reason this show was canceled in the first place. So yeah. I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll see. I don't know. It'd be nice if the show ever comes back, but
yeah.
It sucks that we could only watch it through piracy, like we said. But overall, check Infinity Train out. I guess in total, I'd give the series like a high 8 to 9 out of 10 range. It's
I give
it yeah, I'd say 9 just overall is fair based on
even though I'm like just the highs this show.
I think if it gone on for longer, it could maybe like burst into the 10 tier for me, but it didn't last long enough for that, sadly.
Yeah.
So won't see that. But
yeah, it's a good show.
Infinity Train.
Yeah. If my voice sounds weird during the second half of this, it's because I got a sore throat and I can't talk properly. I hope it still came out okay.
You're probably fine,
Josh.
Josh.
Do you also have the show at a 9? Just curious.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, it's kind of weird to rate overall because it's like disconnected seasons, but yeah.
Yeah, well, I don't know, some of them connected. It's fine.
Yeah, I guess so.
But
thank you for tuning in for another episode of Can't Be Cast. We'll see you with either another franchise. I guess the big 2023 video is coming out soon. I won't say the total release date, but shit, it's coming out. I mean, based off of the Oscars coming out, but I won't say because who knows when it's delayed or whatever. But we'll see. But it's happening probably in around the next month or so. So stay tuned and stay tuned for other Campicast episodes. Nice to have Josh back again.
Yeah, nice to be back.
I think we mentioned Josh on this podcast more than he shows up. So that's
kind of sad. But glad that we got him back for a big episode like this. Anyways, thank you for tuning in, and bye-bye.